Step for Bayshore Garden sidewalk.
Oh, you hadn't seen it yet?
I haven't either. All right. Good morning to everyone. Boy, the mics are loud today. Welcome to the workshop of May 17th, 2016. I'd like to announce right off the bat that Commissioner Whitmore is joining us by phone. Commissioner Whitmore?
Yep.
All right, just want to make sure you were there. We have 3 items on the agenda for this morning, all pretty much regarding housing. So if we could, I'm going to go ahead and, since we're in chambers today, I'd like to go ahead and everyone stand for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We're all thankful to be here, and please help us and guide us to make good decisions for Manatee County and for the state of Florida and the United States as a whole. Father, we need you. There are many trying times, and we just know that you're there beside us and will help guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You want to sing now?
I was just getting ready to ask about Commissioner Smith, but there he is. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Sherry, how are you this morning?
Thank you. I'm well. Commissioners, Sherry Corrier, Director of Neighborhood Services and Community Services. We're here for the 5th work session of the All Things Housing series. It's been several months. We've been meeting with you to go over specific topics. Today we have 4 goals that we'd like to establish, and we have some folks here to speak. Forgive me, but we had some malfunction, so we're going to use the document camera. Today's goals: one is to focus on the current trends in our rental market. This was a request from the board at the last meeting. We're going to be seeking and hearing feedback from persons that are both seeking affordable rentals and are providing rentals. That could possibly come under the regular agenda or public comment. Our second goal here today is to hear from affordable housing builders. We've invited those folks that are working for you in the SHIP program and under our home and CDBG programs, and several of them were able to come in today off of the job site, so we're going to quickly get to those. We have home builders that do reconstruction and rehabilitation in that program, and we also possibly could have some folks from the private sector again for affordable housing builders. You've heard from some of them over the last few months. We're also, for today, we're going to be receiving some public comment for those that are here to provide comment from their observations of our work sessions. And then our last goal is to establish the final schedule for the recommendations and implementations, and that is a scheduled work session for August 16th. You had asked us to reach out to some of the landlords that have been working in the area over many years. Several of them were unavailable today, but we talked with them. I spoke with them on the phone and received their comments, and so we wanted to make sure that we shared those with you. And we certainly are going to continue to receive comments over the next month or so that we can include in the final report. Lou Urice and his son Ryan, and I spoke with Ryan because Mr. Urice is out of the area and not able to attend, but one of the things that he expressed was that they have not needed to advertise for renters for at least the last year. They have filled units. When a unit is not filled, it's immediately has people on the list to come in. Most of that's been through word of mouth and through the different participants that they work with. They do continue to screen their occupants and to make sure that they meet the criteria for their tenants. And some of the concerns they had were that they still are needing to try to protect their tenants that surround their units from various things, you know, criminal activity, drug activity, these kinds of things that don't necessarily happen in their units, but happen in a surrounding area. So they're very concerned about making sure that their tenants are safe, taken care of, and that the units are appropriate. They're very appreciative of the code enforcement relationship that they have with the county. They've seen it increase and be a very positive presence over the last several years, and it's really helped a lot. They did mention that they have seen an increase in their Spanish-speaking rental requests, and they predominantly have a list of individuals that speak Spanish that are seeking their rentals. Next, we contacted David English, who I spoke with for quite a while, and you know Dave's been in business for a long time. He was one of your South County CRA members from the very beginning, and we talked for great length. He has approximately 30 rental units, mostly in the South County. He also said he has not needed to advertise because he has the same situation as Mr. Urice, and they have an abundance of people seeking their units. We indicated that that means we have a lack of them, and possibly especially in the South County area. He did express his disappointment that the South County CRA was discontinued. That's not new information. Dave's been very helpful to us in the past. He's spoken here at the dais. He's provided input on his work with the group and observations, and he was disappointed that the focus of that primary area in South County is now a larger area, which is that southwest TIF. He supports a strong need for more enhanced law enforcement in the South County area. He feels and has proof that that improves safety conditions, feeling that that needs to continue. He very much likes the work with the MSO, especially the sheriff. He feels he's very focused in on the needs of that area and is very responsive to the needs of the rentals. He seeks an open dialogue with the universities to provide for improved student housing in South County. He mentioned to me that he had conversations in the past years but was waiting for things to progress. I let him know that we felt we'd made some pretty good progress in that area over the last year, and I felt that he'd like to be involved in discussing that in the future. He also encouraged the enhancement of the road gang to continue in the South County, but he'd like to see that to come back to the 2 full units that were level in 2010. He said it's very noticeable that there's been a decrease, and that is true. We had a decrease based on the budget back to 1 unit, which is now 3/4 of their time is spent in South County, and the remaining quarter is spent in the 14th Street West CRA area. He's concerned about the lack of use of the Taylor Nursery property for the community center. As a member of the CRA board, they were very focused on having that element be used as a community center to provide some stability to families in that area, a sense of belonging, and he just wanted to express that he really felt that that was a project that the area would like to have seen. Overall, though, he's asked me to stay in touch. He wanted to continue to be involved, and he's been both on the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness and the Continuum of Care for many years, and so he's a valuable partner as well. It was a little difficult getting all of the landlords to come in because they're very, very busy and have properties in a lot of areas. So many of them were out of town, but we do expect Gary Lowe possibly to be here. He might be sitting back there. If not, we expect that he might stop by. Jonathan Bruce was contacted, and we will continue to seek input from him. We just weren't able to finalize contact with him, as well as Commissioner McClash. I did contact him last night and left a message, and like to give him time to respond. We can include their comments in our final report, so we'll continue to reach out to those individuals as well as more. We have various other landlords and rental providers that have spoken during your previous work sessions, and so we're aggregating all that information in our recommendations, and we have one complete section on that as well as the other areas. Next, I'd like to ask Denise to come up to explain to you the next group of individuals.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I have the great opportunity, Denise Thomas, Neighborhood Services. I had a great opportunity to reach out to some of our affordable housing builders. And even though they have projects underway at this moment, they took the time and the willingness to come to share some ideas with you or the impact of affordable housing. These particular contractors have been with us for a long time, working with the SHIP program, doing a housing rehab program and our housing replacement program. And they have made a great impact in your communities. And we want them to continue to work with the program because now that building is starting to increase, they have still devoted themselves to affordable housing. We are very appreciative for the time that they put into it and the lives that they touch. So we want you to hear from them today to kind of see what some of their challenges are and how we can make it better for them to do more affordable housing within our communities. I first have Richard Cheves from Cheves Masonry. He's going to come forward just to share with you what he has done, ideals that he may have, and he is a very prominent builder within our SHIP program, as well as we try to encourage others as well.
Yes, to all the commissioners, I feel compelled to come here this morning to just say thank you for the wonderful work and the wonderful consideration that you have done and are doing for the community. I'm with Cheves Masonry Construction. I'm a lifetime resident, and Commissioner Smith knows, Manatee County. Our families go way back. But not only in our neighborhood, but Robonia, Tallahassee, and Bayshore, all through this county. The work that have been put forth by the efforts that have been put forth by Manatee County Neighborhood Services have really improved. I like to say, in my neighborhood, in Washington Garden area, in which I live on 29th, if you go down 23rd Street and as you turn on 7th Avenue, you see two wonderful houses. And that's very important to me because when you go down and you turn at a dead-end street and you have to make that curve, you want to see something looking good. And that's what I was, each time I go there and I see two nice houses, and all were put forth by people like you and the Manatee County Neighborhood Services. And one thing I like to say here, and I'm like to answer any question that you may ask, I have worked and seen the tears that have came from people's eyes that have lived in dilapidated houses with the floor out the bathroom, the mold, and the rain coming through the roof. I mean, some people had to literally step on the joists in order to get across. So I want to let you know, no matter how much criticism you get from a program like this, you know, Jesus said you're going to always have the poor, but we always need someone like you to be consider them and to be in their favor. And I'm going to say this to Sherry and the Neighborhood Services. I might be a little nervous, even though I'm a sister minister, but they told me I was going to be speaking on the 4th floor. But anyway, but my heart is right, and that's the main thing. But I like to say to them, they have really, really worked. We have a great staff. And believe it or not, even though you're helping people, it's a hard task. And I see some of the things that they go through in the paperwork, and I just thank God for you. And that's one thing in all of our prayers. We always pray for our leaders. You are our leaders on a local sense, our federal and state, but you are our leaders, and we trust you. And we thank you for considering everybody in every program. Thank you very much. I appreciate very much. Any questions or comments? And I've also been working with this program over 25 years, and I haven't had one complaint against my license as yet.
Oh, congratulations.
Any questions or comments?
Commissioner DeSabatino?
So great to hear your story and that you have really helped this community, and you're doing such a great service. And I know that the partnership you have with the team is just immeasurable. And just wanted to thank you for all you do, and continue helping us, and we'll help you. And kudos to you, and just filling a need in the community.
Well,
Thank you so much.
that's very encouraging. We think we need you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Carol?
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brother Cheese has been to the forefront ever since I was a small child fighting for affordable houses when it wasn't even popular to fight for them. And he's been out there, and even during the time I served as a city commissioner, he was always trying to find out how to help someone, if even a 2x4, whatever it may be.
All right.
And believe it or not, he's built quite a few houses that he didn't get one dime for over the years because people just couldn't pay him, but that's the goodness of his heart. So certainly any input that he may have dealing with affordable housing, as we have expanded the county, is continuing to grow and getting more diversified, that any input that you have personally to me, privately, or whatever you think we need to, please contact me.
Amen. And I'd like to say this to Commissioner Smith, even when you with the city of Palmetto on the council, he always told me, and I know he's a community man, he told me, I don't know if you remember or not, but those words are still in my mind and heart. You told me, I'll come to see you if I need anything.
That's right.
So that's what we to know that we have people that care. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore?
I wrote down, Mr. Cheese, I never had the honor of meeting you, but I wrote down, thank you for your comments, your class and humility. We don't see that very often. And we appreciate you doing what you do. And thank you for doing, stepping up. And I just, a lot of people have not met you. I've been up there a while. It would be wonderful if someone would at least introduce you to our other business leaders in the community that build other types of homes, and maybe they can get some ideas from you because you're in the front line. So I just wanted to thank you, and hopefully someday I'll get to meet you in person.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Commissioner Benak?
Mr. Cheese, I also want to thank you for being here, and it's very important because you are obviously very involved in your community, in your neighborhood, and you see the needs firsthand.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes it's not easy for us. We have to look at the big picture, so it's not always easy for us to see where it really hits the road, and obviously you do. So thank you for coming forward. Please stay in touch with our staff, and we're trying to come up with ideas that we can use to help people, and folks like you are invaluable. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next, I would like to bring up Steve Reinhardt. He is the developer who is currently doing the construction and development of Cortez Landing, which is located right behind Southeast High School. These homes are in the affordable price range, and I know he have abundance of buyers who want to buy within that community. Many of them are actually single mothers, single households that are able to realize home ownership. They have been paying rent for years, and now they're able to put their dream and investment in a home that can later on even put their children through college. So we want to commend him for coming out today to share with you his thoughts. I have for you Steve Reinhardt of Reinhardt Homes.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Steve Reinhardt. I've been a new home builder in the area for 20-some years, and while my sense is, affordable housing is predominantly a rehabilitation topic, remodeling topic, I have not had the opportunity to provide affordable housing in the past just because land costs, development costs prevent that opportunity. But Cortez Landings was previously owned by Manatee County Habitat for Humanity, and their goals and some other situations forced them to sell the property, and I was fortunate enough to purchase this. And so it enabled me to get my land costs down, and wasn't familiar with the program, came in and met with Denise, and tried to determine what the extra incentives would be to help this to be a viable, affordable project. And a couple of the ideas, topics that were very important to me were the impact fee credits that we receive in new construction, as well as the rapid response program. That actually was a topic that I didn't think would be a realistic idea, because I'm used to using 2 to 3 week review time, but the staff up there has honored that and done an incredible job. It is truly a 3-day turnaround time, and we appreciate that. But the impact fees have definitely helped make this project affordable. Some of the ideas, if you can continue that idea, because development costs to provide a new affordable community is quite large. So, and land costs are land costs. So impact fees, where, you know, if I'm trying to provide a house that's $140,000, $150,000, and I have to pay $16,000 in impact fees, building fees, blah, 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 versus someone that's out there building a $400,000 or $500,000 house, it's quite an unweighted scale. So other than that, we're learning some of the processes. One little frustration part, her department has to work with the clerk department, and it takes 3 weeks for them to cut a check back to me. It's 15 business days, 3 weeks. You know, I come from the private world where we can get a closing done, wires money, you know, and it's 3 or 4 days turnaround time. So that's been a little frustrating. Denise and I are working well together, and we're trying to figure out the bugs and trying to get the closings to happen as quick as we can to get the customer into the house. But other than that, you have any questions?
Mm-hmm. Commissioner DiSabatino.
I do, and thank you for stepping up again. And what type of houses are you putting up, size, price range, and so forth, and availability?
They're, because of the size of the properties, they're about 1,300 square feet living area, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and I offer 3 different houses, 2 one-story products. And because a few of the lots in that community were a challenge, I had to come up with a 2-story house, and it's about 1,600 square foot. The 2 one-story houses, the DeSoto and the Ponce de Leon, they're 141.9 and 143.9 house and lot. It's a 1-car garage. And the 2-story, 1,600 square foot living area, 1-car garage, and that's 159.9.
And how many do you have? How many did you put up, and how many are available, or are they all
well,
sold?
Well, there were 53 remaining lots in this property, and since January, we've sold 25.
That's great.
Wow.
Yeah, we're averaging about 5 a month, with very little advertising in the mainstream media. It's been mostly drive-bys, people contacting in the SHIP program, making them becoming aware of my project through the SHIP program, through their education classes that they have to take.
Now, do they have to qualify for certain income levels?
Yeah, and that's still a mystery to me, I will tell you that.
Okay.
That matrix. It's based on their income, based on the size of the household, and really there's 2 qualification processes. Denise and their staff have to qualify them, as well as the lender has to qualify them. So.
Good. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, that's great. I've known Mr. Reinhardt's been around for a long time building homes. I think even back when I worked at the county, you were building homes a long time ago. But that's nice to hear somebody's actually taking advantage of our impact fee program, because right now it's limited to only single-family homes. And so that's one of the reasons we have the money available, because for a long time, nobody was building single-family affordable housing because they just couldn't make it work at all. So it's really glad to hear that the land deal became available to you. It's unfortunate that Habitat lost it, but I know Habitat has moved on to some different types of products that they're working on. I know they've got a nice big project going in the city, because I was just talking to some folks that work for Habitat about that. But that seems to be the biggest deal, is trying to find land affordable. And it's something that I think we're going to need to work on. I've talked to Sherry a little bit about some land that was available through the Housing Authority possibly, and just, you know, stay tuned. If we can find more land and developers like you that are used to or getting used to the process and figuring out how to jump through the hoops, you're going to be invaluable to us if you're considering staying on and continuing down this.
Well, I have, with this program and understanding more about the SHIP program and what it does, I have bought 6 off-site lots that were close to Cortez Landings that I will admit, you know, in my 25 years of building, I've never ventured into this segment of the market. It wasn't a reality. It wasn't profitable. And you know, I never took the time and to understand how some of the processes work. And I will admit that the price of the land, the fact that the infrastructure was all done, was appealing at first. And then as I started to look at the market and then look at the incentive programs, so, you know, it is a two-way street. You know, if there can be education on both sides, that for sure helps. But the impact fee program was a big incentive.
Great. Very good. It's good to hear from somebody who's using it.
Yes.
Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, that's great. You know, you're doing it and succeeding. I didn't get the address. Is this off of 44th, 11th Street East?
Yes.
On that loop area?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that you haven't been too much into the affordable homes or building because of different regulations we may have. I thought you said that. I may be wrong.
No, well, you have two major costs. You have your land cost, right? And so you have the purchase price of the land, and you have the infrastructure cost. So today's market, you know, prior to this, I did San Cassiano, which was right next to the I-75 office, State Road 64, right underneath the tower. Another big success for me. It was 98 lots, but it was in the city of Bradenton. But I hit a pent-up demand, but even there, my lot costs, my development costs were over $25,000 a lot cost. So trying to buy raw land and then trying to get infrastructure in, it just prevents you to make that affordable. Thankfully, at Cortez Landings, I'm meeting the very low affordable range of under 144, but with those two costs right off the bat, it is just very difficult. At San Cassiano, my average price was $185,000. I got a good deal on the land, and infrastructure costs were still low, but I'm still out of the affordable range.
Over the years that you've been building homes, how many have you built north of the river?
I'm sorry?
How many homes have you built north of the river?
North of the river, not very many. I have been primarily in Manatee County, Sarasota County, and south of the river, west of I-75.
East Bradenton, any homes in East Bradenton before you get to State Road 70 or 64?
No, primarily it's been west of 75 and south of the river.
Do you have a waiting list right now for your homes, or you say you don't have to advertise too much or anything? You've been building about 5 a month. Do you have people in line waiting to move if you have the ability to build more homes?
No, we do not. We have about 4 realtors now that are working this market segment that are very, each one of them has brought 3 and 4 customers, and drive-bys, and people that take that the affordable class that they have to take to get the certification are becoming aware of our project.
If we had available land, the county had available land, would you be interested in building affordable houses if the land was available?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think I'm the last one on the board. I just want to say thank you for doing this. I'm hoping that there's more like you out there that we just don't know about yet. I know that the price of land is a big issue, and property owners, you know, have the right, and it's a difficult situation to find land that already has infrastructure that can help keep the costs down for you. But what I think I would like is that as you move forward and you're going through this process, if you could let us know how perhaps we could improve the process or any changes that you see that might be helpful, let us know. And, you know, just a big thank you for what you're doing, because there's a lot of people out there that, you know, will finally be a homeowner and have the proud ownership and make a difference. So we thank you.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out of your day.
Thank you.
You're probably pretty
Chair.
busy.
Madam Chair,
Time's money.
I have a question for Denise.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for bringing these gentlemen to us. Just so the public knows, because some people ask me, what is affordable? And so 149 to 159, what type of income would like a family of 3 or 4? I know that you have these big charts, but roughly what would it take?
We're going to check our manual for the income charts, but one thing I did want to share with you, our affordable range for very low is $144,000. For low income, it's $160,000, and for moderate, it's $176,000. So this project meets almost every category that we look at. I also want to share with you that when Mr. Reinhardt came to me and told me about his development, what we also were able to do was set aside $220,000 of SHIP dollars just for that development for end purchasers. So even though the other money went, his pot stayed, and he was able to still serve individuals, but he was also able to take advantage of the general part with moderate income as well. So when SHIP funds open up again in July, his buyers can take advantage of that. But his project is a mixed income project. So some may be even past the moderate level, and that's what we want to encourage. We want all avenues of income to participate. For a 3-person household, at the very low level, the total household income is $27,350. At low income level, it is $43,760. And at a moderate income level, it's $65,640. And the state provide those to us every year, and there are times when it increase. So that kind of give you the range of what it is. And we have, I think his challenge is we are telling those who are doing home buyer education, because we're funding them, to share this project with their attendees. And they are looking forward to a new home. They can go in, and they're taking advantage of the program.
Could you explain the SHIP dollars that you've set aside, who qualifies, and about how much can they qualify for, and what is it used for?
On the down payment assistance program, if they are a moderate income household, they can qualify up to $25,000 in down payment assistance. If they are a low income household, they can qualify up to $30,000 in down payment assistance. And if they are very low, they can qualify up to $35,000 in down payment assistance. And what this is essence does, if there is a home at the price of $130,000 and we provide $30,000 in down payment assistance, all they have to qualify for a first mortgage is under $100,000, which makes it affordable and bring their payments down.
Are they required to put any money down themselves?
Yes, we require them to at least invest $500 into the transaction. Many times they do more, but that is the only requirement. And in proportion of that down payment assistance, we'll cover closing costs of the $6,000.
Right, and then you work with certain lenders that...
Yes, we certify lenders every year now. And the reason we do that, because we want them to give service to our clients and service to the county. We want them to be responsive to the needs of our client. So each year, and we just started this last year, we certify the lenders. And the individual choose those lenders. And we evaluate the lenders, how they treat our customers, how they respond to us, because we want to give the best customer service we can. And we are going to be certifying lenders again May 31st, and June 20th. So we're going to be certifying them again.
And last question, the funds that they get towards their down payment, do they have to pay that back over a certain time, or they just have to live in the house a certain length of time and then it's forgiven, or how does that work?
I'm so glad you asked. It is offered as a 0% deferred loan. There is no payment on it as long as they reside in the property. And at the end of 30 years, it go away. If they should buy a home and use SHIP funding and they should pass away, we have an assumption policy so that it can continue in the family line.
But if they sell the house before 30 years, then they have to,
They only pay back the amount of SHIP funds provided because they go back in the pot to help another family.
got it. Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah, this is great, and I'm really glad that we're on TV because the message here is, you know, if you're a home builder out there, a small guy, single guy, you could make a profit doing
Yes.
this kind of.
Yes.
You know, we're not talking about total government subsidy here. We're talking about putting together different tools to make this work for people. And, you know, it's not easy, as he said. He's learning the process, but he's been a builder around here for a long time, and he's found a way to make it work. And, you know, the fact that we have the SHIP funding, I'm really glad that Robin asked the question, because I was going to ask those questions too about how it works, because the specifics are important. And we also, you might want to comment the impact fee that he's talking about, impact fee help. It's because we do have a pot of money.
Yes.
Everyone has asked, what's that pot of money for? Where is the fund stand right now for payment of impact fees for single-family homes?
It's around, with Mr. Reinhardt Homes, his total impact fee is about $6,200, and the county's paying about $4,200 of it.
Okay.
So that's a sizable
Yeah.
refund to receive just to come into affordable housing.
Right, because that's a big ticket item, and part of the deal was, and since we've been doing this, is we did freeze the impact fees for affordable housing at the previous rate. I'm not really sure how that works, because we've gone up a couple. How does that work? So what rate is it frozen at? Do you know?
At the 2011.
2011, right, okay. So it was frozen at the 2011 rate, and they get assistance. But that's the kind of thing that we need, especially since they're going in areas which primarily has infrastructure already.
Yes.
That's why they're going in areas where we already have the roads and, you know, other infrastructure, that parks, schools, things like that. They're usually going in places where they're available.
And we also encourage developers to look at infill sites.
Yeah, exactly.
Scattered infill sites. We just want it everywhere.
Yeah.
We can get it.
Right, because it's hard. It's hard. I mean, a greenfield development where you're buying farmland at, you know, whatever an acre, that's probably not going to work. But where they can get a deal on some property on an infill site, that makes it good. But I know it's kind of interesting because we're hearing people say now, you know, that there's a business model for building housing in this price range. And so I hope the message goes out that there's a way to make a successful business doing this. So thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair, Ms. Thomas, how many houses can we actually build with the SHIP money a year?
Based off the level of assistance, now I do need to share the SHIP pot that we have. We also use it for rehab and replacement. Excuse me. We set aside about $400,000 for down payment assistance, and that's including just going out and buying existing homes or new construction. But in that pot, we also set aside $200,000 additional for this development, so that we can encourage individuals, incentivize them to basically buy within the development. Based off of what Mr. Reinhardt has, we probably could do about 10 in his development with just a set aside, but with the total SHIP pot at about $35,000 or $30,000, probably about 20.
So 20 affordable houses a year.
Right. If we had more SHIP dollars, we could do more.
So that's our housing program. 20 houses, the max we can do based on the SHIP program. You
So
said
it's down payment assistance, yes.
right. You mentioned the rehab program.
Yes.
And we have a waiting list for the rehab program?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we don't have enough money.
No, we don't.
Okay, and this is one program that we have, the Manatee County Government SHIP.
Yes.
What's the other affordable housing program do we have?
Well, we have used the home funds, but it's a lower pot of money, and we
How much
try
is
to
that?
do probably about $400,000. But we have done replacement housing, which is $150,000 to do a house. So that doesn't go very far for us. I guess the bottom line is we do need more dollars in order to impact more house.
Under your SHIP program that you're talking about, the max you can do is 20 houses That's our affordable houses, and also the rehab houses. That waiting list that you have, do you have an idea how many people is on that waiting list?
Well, we did a drawing last year, random drawing, and we did a drawing for disabled as well as general. And the disabled had about 25, and the general had about 50. We are not going to be able to serve all of them. And what we do is we serve as many as we can, and then when we start the next round of funds, we send out the entry form, put in to participate. It's based on the luck of the draw. And that was the only way we could do it to create some fairness, because the need is far exceeds the funds.
Is there any more affordable housing money available that we have annually that comes to Manatee County government? I'm adding up roughly around about $900,000 so far.
Well, SHIP is 1.8 million, and that's covering all the programs.
Okay, I asked you about SHIP. You say you can do 20 houses a
Well,
year.
I was talking about down payment assistance on that end. But
Okay.
then on the replacement, we may do about 3, 4. On rehab, we may do maybe 7 or 8.
Okay, because I asked you about the rehab because I know Eva Dane, Eva
Yeah.
Brown, and so more people calling me saying they've been waiting for years
I know.
to get their houses, and in fact, she done called me again. And so I want to have a serious conversation about affordable houses so we can fix the problem. We got to admit that we got an affordable housing problem.
Yeah.
We need to find out how many affordable houses we need for Manatee County government, unincorporated areas, so we can address this issue. And so this is why I'm asking these questions, because I have people calling me saying they've been waiting for years, and it's not staff problem. So we need to really focus on the fact that the housing program in Manatee County is broken. And this is what I'm trying to do. Maybe they don't call my other colleagues, but they're calling me left and right. So I want to have a genius conversation up here. We're doing some good work with the staff we have, but we need other streams of revenue.
Yes.
We need other incentives for developers.
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking about location of these houses, your high crime areas, there's spot houses being built, there's no major development, and that's where the sheriff is asking for all these monies in these high crime areas for law enforcement. So if we're not rehabbing and building new homes in those areas, we're still gonna have the same problem. You keep doing the same thing and get the results, same results. So that's why and some of them are watching TV today, because I told them we was gonna be on TV. It's about quite a few want to come here. I didn't need them in this segment because they're not really happy, to be honest with you, because they've been waiting so long. So I want to hear what the developers need, what people who want to build affordable houses, how can we assist them? We talk about land. Most government have land. They deed the land for affordable houses for people building affordable houses. They don't pay for it. They deed the trouble areas, get it, good code enforcement, and deal with those areas. So this is what I'm talking about. So I'm hearing the land issue is major, but that's the big component that government can do. And so on your SHIP money, you mentioned home. And so we're dealing with probably, how much money we're talking about with the home you mentioned?
Home is probably about 450-some,000.
Okay.
We also receive what is called Emergency Solution Grant money, which is rental assistance for those who are to prevent homelessness. And we receive in that part about $150,000 from HUD. And in addition to that, we do have the CDBG program, which is about $1.5 million, but that usually deals with community activities that we're trying to do. I do want to share, if we had gotten fully funded through the SHIP program, it would have been over $3 million. So you can only work with what you have. And if we had more to work with, we would want to make a greater impact. So it's based on the funding that we have, and we try to do as much as we can with what we have. But it's based on the level.
You mentioned the CDBG money.
Yes.
What's the highest level we ever had?
I have to ask Sherry. 1.5? Yes.
1.5
Yes.
million, okay. On the rehabilitation and revitalizations of slum and blighted areas, encouraging affordable housing and development, is this something that we're going to do in these workshops? I take it that we're going to have a recommendation eventually what we should do and what's best suited for Manatee County.
Yes.
I noticed I was reading that the new director of the Bradenton City Planning Department had trouble getting place where she can live affordably. Well, that's at least what I read in the paper. And I think you reached out to her dealing with that. And I know Braden has intensified their affordable houses, but what they did is these troubled areas, they purchased that property and did affordable houses, so you don't have to keep putting money in law enforcement in those areas. So certainly, we have to revamp what we're doing for these crime-ridden communities that continue to be depressed and have people who are trying to take care of their families that continue to live in a criminal element. So I'm still listening to the conversation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Great conversation, and we're not shooting any messenger because you do so much, and government can only do so much. You're there trying to find every program, every grant you can, and we're in line like everybody else. So, but the way the government can assist is with properties that we don't need, surplus properties. People can go to the tax deeds and get it through very inexpensively on the courthouse steps, but we also fast track it and reduction of impact fees. So we are trying to do other things other than money as much as we can. It's all money one way or another. And I'm glad you brought up that it's not just someone going in like the small guy wanting to do a large community. We can do one project at a time and get your feet wet and do one at a time and pick up a distressed property. And it's probably, in this day and age, it's probably cheaper to tear it down and build new, and that way you have new built to the right grade and less insurance costs. But are there other grants that private individuals can go for that you know of, or?
There is not much, but we are exploring other possibilities that we want to bring to you on August 16th.
Okay.
There are bond programs that individuals take advantage of, but we try to bring our program together with it to make a greater impact for the individual.
Right.
But we are still searching for any type of grants or funding out there that we can take advantage of.
And then another would be a request for people who own lots of land or buildings that they're not utilizing, and maybe there's a way to swap it out and get creative and getting some tax incentives that way and write-offs on their taxes that they donated a parcel. Something to get creative with companies. Lori Gale, I think, is going to talk about an area that Amazon had a building, and they weren't utilizing it in the West Coast. And so they're opening that up for affordable housing for a few years. So just companies that get creative that way. So something else. Thank you.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I think it's good that we started talking about CDBG. I know we're like in the last year, and we're going to be putting together our next 5-year CDBG plan, right, coming up. And so that's when we look at where specifically we want to spend those funds. I think we get more money than the city does on CDBG.
Well, yes, on both CDBG and SHIP.
Yeah, CDB and SHIP. So, where I appreciate the city doing infill redevelopment, and doing everything they can. I know, having talked to Tim about some of the things that they were doing, modeling after our code enforcement, and we've run into some issues. It's not easy, nor should it be easy, to take somebody's property through code enforcement. One of the best sources of affordable housing we have is people in their existing homes. That's where this rehab is still important. It can't all be new construction. New construction is very, very difficult to do and make it affordable. But keeping folks and rehabbing neighborhoods, that you get more bang for the buck when you rehab neighborhoods, because you improve the area where the people already are. And people, there's so many opportunities to invest. That's where we're focusing on the urban core. And as we focus on the urban core, looking at changes to our land use plan are extremely important, because that's a way to get the property costs down, is put more houses per acre. And we know that. We have people here that are taking advantage of that. And we worked hard, initiated this board, at my request, suggested and adopted a comp plan amendment to be able to do that, to be able to take forward, and we're looking at that in the urban core. So I know it's frustrating, the lack of money, but I think we have to be careful, not to put people off, because we've got to keep working on this. We've got to keep our eye on the ball, which is it's moving. There's a lot of different moving parts. But I think that when we get into the CDBG, and Charles knows, because we were in Washington, and that's what the HUD people told us, you're going to have to look at your block grant and how you're spending that. And traditionally, block grant money in Manatee County has been spent on infrastructure. It's been a good thing. Places like Tallahassee were helped by block grant money. Places like Rabonia were helped with block grant money. There has been block grant funding, and now we've got block grant funding going to sidewalks, big issue in Bayshore Gardens, able to help existing neighborhoods. So we got to figure out the best way to spend these limited pots of money to get the most bang for our buck. So I'm glad we're going to continue to have that discussion coming up, right, Sherry?
I'm glad you just said that, because, it's true. The best way to spend the limited funds that we have. And I'm glad you brought up Washington, because I was sitting here thinking, I wish you guys could have been there with us, because we really had great conversation and some great ideas. So we'll need to move, probably look in a different way at things than what we've done in the past. Commissioner Whitmore.
Yeah, and I'm glad this is a work session. I'm glad, and again, this is no idea is a dumb idea today. This is what work sessions are for. And I just think, I get so impatient because everything takes so long. But the idea, and what we're talking about, and you've heard the builders, the developers that have come before us, that this doesn't fit their model because they do another type of business model. But just hearing the guys today and knowing what the other groups are doing, I would just think it would be a great idea, or maybe it's just because I'm laying here on the couch, but maybe it would be a great idea if somebody with, like Betsy, with your planning background, or the chair, get together with the gentleman that came up that actually do it, and Sherry's group, and our building community. I know that they have issues because of the sizes of land they need to be able to do whatever, but I think that they don't see the experience of what success some do have. Our guys that are developing all over East, they're buying large tracts of land. I think as they make money and we all benefit, that they maybe would work and see that it isn't as hard as we all think it is. And you've shown demonstrations of it today. So I'm hoping that maybe, Madam Chair, you would consider, or see if the chair has the appetite, to have these groups actually sit and make. I know they're all busy, but we've come at a turning point now that we have to do something. We're hearing it loud and clear from all our citizens. So I don't know if that's an idea that you think we could pursue. And then before this part's over, are we going to even talk about the landlords, the rental part of it, not the home ownership, but the rentals?
Commissioner Whitmore, I do not see that on the agenda for today, so we'll have to see.
Well, I do have a landlord
You do?
that would like to speak.
Yeah, it said all things housing, so I figured that was all things housing.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting back with Commissioner Benak, and we didn't discuss this at the last meeting because we was dealing with Rabonia, but I think she kind of alluded to it briefly, but I haven't mentioned anything. And dealing with our CDBG funds, and the number two in command questioned how we spending that money, and basically said it needs to change. The CDBG funds. So that's something we must look at, because a person that high, when we asking money from the federal government, looks at all aspects of what we're doing for disbursements. And that wasn't solicited. It came straight out of his mouth, dealing with CDBG funds. And I know I just seen in the paper some of the expenditures that we're going to do. we recommending that's going to come to us. So certainly I would be questioning some of those based on his conversation with that. CDBG is to remove slum and blight, to buy distressed properties and things like that, to clean up troubled areas and things. So that's one thing. The good thing dealing with the private owners and developers, and I'm not a developer, so I'll tell you what they probably saying. You have more here, but the facts are, what is government putting on the table? When you're talking about affordable housing, you're talking about high risk. You're talking about taking chances. So I think the developers and even the ones that spoke and some of the ones that may be coming in the future, once we define what we're putting on the table, I think you have people that want to sit down and discuss. But asking someone to build affordable houses, and we say, well, we have incentives. I mean, that don't mean too much of anything when you're dealing with land. And the fact is that we need thousands of affordable houses, you know, in Manatee County. And state of Braden and Palmetto can't do it on their own. And Braden has been pretty aggressive cleaning up slum and blight. It's a process. And so I think you will have, people not busy if they're going to make money. They're not coming to me that they think they're not going to make money. There's no opportunity to have a straightforward conversation. Nobody in business would do that. So it's going to come to us putting some in writing, more than incentives, land and stuff like that, and what we may have with setbacks, regulations, revitalizations, and all these different things. We got to put something where they can see it's, okay, now I'll come to the table because we got a partnership. But I'm not coming to the table with my resources in these areas and start building affordable houses when I'm not being protected with my investment. And that's what it boils down to. The ones you said are not here. If we had some on the table, you wouldn't be able to get in here. Because people across the state are making good money building affordable houses. Some, that's all they build. So that's something we're just going to have to do ourselves. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, on that note, I just want to add that, you know, I think sometimes it's easy to talk about we need to build this, you know, affordable housing, we need to build that, and Lord knows we do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I think the issue, we need to remember that the builders that want to build affordable housing also has to make a living. And it's tough. And it's like has already been said here. I mean, land and infrastructure plays a big, big role because the impact fees we can offset. But the land and the infrastructure really does seem to be the problem. So the other thing I had asked for Rabonia to be on this agenda, this workshop, I actually had a conversation when I was in Washington on that. And the reason was, you know, I wanted us to talk about CDBG funds. And Sherry, do you know when that might be coming before us? I know we're going to be getting into the budget, but I think we need to have a conversation with the commissioners before we get to that point because of issues along this line and Rabonia. Where do we stand on that?
Chairman, Commissioners, the Neighborhood Action Plan for Rabonia is almost complete with recommendations. So within the next 2 weeks, we'll have a document for you to look at, and we had planned for that to help drive some of the discussion and some of your decisions. And so it'll be back before you recess on June 21st.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to know, because I know a lot of us sitting up here, you know, we want to see some changes made. We want to be able to move forward, and we have decisions to make. So on that note, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing it up, and I might as well say that here. And I know that the Deputy HUD Administrator, Deputy Secretary of HUD, disagreed with our assessment on funds being dispersed in Rabonia in our meeting with him. And 3 or 4 different times. So it was good that we went to get clarification to that issue. And I'm glad that the chair was talking about different things that we can talk about dealing with CDBG funds because there's so many different opportunities that we do have. And I know that you work your butt off on some of the different departments. You're looking.
And she does.
You know, so I don't know how you even focus, to be honest, but thank you.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, and we had the meeting with staff and with quite a few people, and the Deputy Administrator of HUD was there, and we were explaining to him where we were in the process with Rabonia and how we'd had issues with the census and how we'd hired a consultant to go ahead and look at this. And he seemed surprised that we would have to jump through those hoops. And I told Sherry this when I got back, when I had an opportunity to meet with Sherry and told him what was said. But I'm not sure in that meeting we got the full story, but he was very adamant that there are ways to get funding for an area like Rebbonia, as I told you. And so I know we're in the process of doing this study, and we'll see what the results are. And I know it's frustrating to have to wait, but the fact, Sherry, where are we in the CDBG planning phase? You'd explain this to me, that we're in the last year of our 5-year plan, so we have to adopt a new one. So it seems, especially with the documentation that we're getting on Rebbonia, that we're going to be ripe to be able to do that.
Yes, the CDBG plan for your action plan for 17 is also in line with that same time frame to be done. You have a 30-day notice period, which is, for people to comment on, be back in front of you and decision made prior to your recess as well. And we have taken into consideration the possibility that Rebbonia or even other areas may become eligible within any changes to the census, to the map, because we receive new maps. What happens is you generate your CDBG recommendations to HUD at the end of June, and they have 45 days to comment, review, and it'd be a similar process with the Neighborhood Action Plan. Just as a side note, we did make 2 attempts to try to get Rebbonia re-looked at or singled out within the census tract map, one in 2011, another in 2013, and those were done through the HUD process. And at that time, they were not recommended to go forward. And so we were looking for other avenues and determined that this Neighborhood Action Plan, which was a suggestion based on the participation between the 21st Century Group and our consultant, that this had been done in other areas of the nation, because the consultant, Wade Trim, that we use for our CDBG program has other customers or clients, which is kind of why it's good to have them as our consultant, because they can tell us when other things have failed or been achieved. And so that is the direction. I can say, though, in support of what Commissioner Smith said, that some things at the HUD level had been modified in the last year or so to expand the ability to look at special areas. And so that could have been what the reference was made, is that maybe that option wasn't available to us back in 11 and 13, but is now. The possibility of having funds available for Rebbonia would be driven on whether or not that plan is accepted and the areas made eligible. And so if it is, we're hoping that we would have some funding, some unspent funds, or some things that we could come back. The HUD process is very prescribed, let's say, and we will have to do what's called a substantial amendment to our plan if funds were going to be reallocated to anything that's not in the action plan that you submit by the end of June. This is a process followed for 40 years in the existence of CDBG, so it's not new. It's not just being done to us, but it's so the public can know where all the funds are placed. So if, for example, the Rebbonia area is deemed to be eligible and we'd like to look at monies, what staff would do is we would go back and look at any of the projects that have been completed and or that are on the table to see, is there any funds within those projects that they would not be spending. So if we overestimated a project or underestimated a project, there is the ability to do some moving of funds up to 20% in a project, but to actually add a new project, we have to go back to that substantial amendment. Takes a 30-day notice period to the public. So just while I'm standing here, I think I can safely say to you that anything that you would be doing outside of your CDBG plan that's in there now, you would not be seeing that to be able to happen until after January 1st of 17. It takes at least that long because this is an October 1 start date for CDBG.
And just to follow up and continue the conversation, and that is what we heard, that the plan would have to be changed. He was very clear on that. He indicated that there was eligibility that maybe wasn't there before, or maybe there was a misunderstanding. We weren't really clear. I wasn't really clear with what he was saying. But we are working to address that specifically, the eligibility, and then this board will have to, along with the community, will have to address the plan, because it, just like CRAs, I know I've heard all the time from CRA directors, I've been to the conferences, if it's not in the plan, you can't spend the funds. Got to be in the plan. And that's the way that the federal government works. And we get it. We want to comply. But it's going to take some discussion by the community and this board what we are going to fund in our plan.
Yes,
So.
and you indicated accurately, and I'll just reiterate that we're in the last year for our 5-year plan, be starting to write the new plan beginning around October 1st. That would be for projects that would come forward October of 17. So you're looking at the 17-18 budget, but we welcome an open dialogue. This CDBG program is a public process. It's driven by public comment and public need. I think the one issue that you probably would have you're experiencing is when you're in your last year or two, you're trying to fund projects that you identified 4 years ago, categories, let's say. So that's why the sidewalks and the street improvements are important, because they impact so many people. So they bring a bigger benefit to the area that's deemed eligible. And what happens is you're looking at meeting some requirements that you've set forth in your plan. So it's a great opportunity to be making a change in direction based on all this input and all the driving from both this body, the commission, and from the public together.
Okay, if I can ask a question, Sherry, when is our plan up? In 17?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So we'll be looking then at 17 and 18?
Yes, you're making the recommendations that we'll be seeing in the next 30 days
Right.
are for the October 1, 16 through September 30, 17 time period. A project can take more than a year. Projects don't get started, as you can imagine. A sidewalk project that's identified in this next year may not be happening until 2 or 3 years later, just because any capital project.
Right.
But the new 5-year plan would be to designate the areas of funding in a 1-year action plan for October 1st of 17 through September 30 of 18.
Okay, and I'd like for the board to realize, too, we do not have another workshop until August. This is the last one, I believe. Is that correct? Mr. County Administrator?
On this subject,
Yes.
I think we have one more meeting in August, yes.
Right. Excuse me, though, but let me clarify. That process of creating your next 5-year action plan spans for many months. And so it would start in October, but it would not be concluded until approximately April or May of 17. So you have many, many months to put comment in, and actually staff travels around the community to gain public comment to add to it. So it's an activity in and of itself.
Right. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll at least have discussion on this when we're talking about the budget this year. Commissioner Smith, did you want to?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I know Commissioner Benak is correct, and the public needs to understand, we're talking about the deputy secretary. We're not talking about we're talking about the second in command who will be the secretary of HUD. And we were caught off guard, and evidently he was prepared for the meeting and know what we was doing with our money and everything else. So who are we to question why he's saying what he's saying? Because we didn't think he was going to say what he said dealing with CDBG and things like that. So, and we don't know why he volunteered that, but he leaned over and he didn't back off what he said. And even when we kept bringing up the census in Charlie, he wasn't hearing that. And of course, they had packets of what we was asking for before we got there. So this probably was maybe the first time he actually seen what we was doing, what kind of funding we was receiving. So he was commenting, but he was not moving, and we could not really ask him why was he saying what he was saying. So we left it right there. So.
Okay. I don't have anyone else on the board.
I think we have some other folks Denise is going to present for under the rental category to speak.
We did reach out to several landlords, and as Sherry said earlier, their schedule wouldn't allow them to be here. But we did have one landlord, which is Travis Vangroff, who would like to come before you to share some thoughts.
Welcome, Travis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I really happy to be here just 15 hours after being in front of Sarasota. Getting approval over there was really tough, and working with you guys is a pleasure always. We've worked with you. We have a number of affordable economic workforce housing homes in Manatee, Bradenton, Sarasota, Nokomis, Palmetto. We're trying to increase that number by a little over 200, 240, which you're being incredibly supportive of. We have 6.7 acres on the north side of the property that we are trying to zone to allow a little bit shy of 300 two-bedroom apartments on. We're working with you on that over the next, I think it's going to be like a 6 or 8 month process to get that approved or discussed and move that forward. You're very much for affordable housing. You've been very helpful in, I don't want to say getting out of the way, but that's pretty accurate. You allow us to do what we would like to do, which is bring quality, safe homes for everyone in the community. We try to help with people, or we try to help people and individuals who are families who are non-chronic homeless. So that's individuals who are maybe recently divorced, abused wives or husbands, individuals who've been separated. We work with social services like Spark, like Trinity Without Borders. We have a lot of individuals that are really needing a home. Every day, 2 or 3 individuals walk into the office I sit at, usually pretty close to being in tears because they don't have anywhere else to go. The people we see come to us, find us through word of mouth, through our signs. Our phone number, my dad's phone number, is on every one of our T-shirts. It's on every one of our signs as well. They get him directly. Soon it'll be me when he goes sailing for the summer. But
Lucky guy.
Absolutely, we get like 100 calls a day, pretty much. It's a lot. But like was discussed earlier, a lot of individuals who are seeking homes are Spanish speaking. We're trying to accommodate that. My Spanish is poquito español, but we do have a lot of Spanish-speaking tenants. We are trying to make sure that everyone we move in has been screened. We're trying to improve neighborhoods that we purchase homes in and make them better and safer and cleaner. We've seen other landlords also following suit. We have had no difficulty from you. You do ask questions, but they're reasonable questions. You're not asking, well, if you have a balcony, someone could theoretically be thrown off that balcony. You're not asking questions like that, or if there's a propane tank within 50 feet of our property, you're not asking us to do an inquiry if the propane tank were to explode. We were actually asked that last night. So I guess you're cooperative, you're taking all the right steps, you're asking the right questions, you are looking to make a difference. I would say if anything could be done on your end, it would be that the social services that we work with, like Spark, individuals who are sent to us from those organizations need help sometimes. They need someone to talk to, and we can only do so much. And if any assistance could be made for organizations like Bridges of America and organizations like that, I think that would be extremely helpful. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Commissioner Burnett.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the work you and your dad are doing. We appreciate the team attitude, being willing to work with us, and I know John Barnott and his team have been working really hard to try to move your project forward. And your question about social services, I was able to attend a luncheon for Turning Points, which I don't know if you have had an opportunity to visit there, but the work that Turning Points does is amazing in this community in taking in people that are housing challenged, homeless, have nowhere else to turn. So I would hope that you are partnering with them, because I know you're not looking for chronic homeless, but lots of times they see people that come in that just, that one paycheck away from losing their home, and I think that's kind of your demographic. So I would hope that you would work with Turning Points and the folks there. Just another little plug for Turning Points. They've put together such an incredible medical team recently. They're actually seeking to help people that have medical challenges. They have nurse practitioners now on board. They have a medical director, and we've just approved a program to help them do blood work there, so they can follow chronic diseases such as diabetes. So it's really a wonderful organization that helps people in need, and I think that'd be a great tie-in for you if you haven't had the opportunity to get.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to add a little bit to what Betsy said. Turning Points is an amazing organization, and if you're not working with them, you might want to make a call, take a tour, and see what type of programs they have, because it's truly just phenomenal what they're doing, and I can't thank them enough. And at the luncheon that Commissioner Benak is talking about, I know Commissioner DiSabatino was there as well, and they had a few people there that they've helped, and it can't help but touch your heart when you're seeing what all they do. So definitely call Turning Points.
On the board.
Carol, I know wants to comment.
Commissioner Whitmat, I knew you'd want this one.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad everybody attended the other day, too. It's a pleasure meeting you. Never met you before. I'm glad. We usually see the same old faces, so it's nice to see somebody young, and you sound like you're excited about doing what you're doing. And bringing up Turning Points, and I know some of the other landlords aren't there today. I saw Joe McClash's mother-in-law at a physical therapy, and I know he's in Europe a couple months, but I wish they would have sent somebody, because there are some rental companies that Turning Points won't use. And the reason why is because they are very, they handhold their, their clients to make sure that they get the best housing available. And some of these places, and I'm not saying yours at all, they have code enforcement issues, and they don't get taken care of. So I need to make sure, if we could, I'd like to hear from you, first of all. There are some rentals that I've been hearing, and I know some of the others of us have heard, that they're just in deplorable conditions inside. And we did a property management program, but the main rental groups did not want us to go inside the rentals. So I'd like to know from, is it Travis, what your thoughts are on that, because when the One Stop won't use some of these people, then we may have a problem.
I would say that if you if someone approached you and said their living conditions were deplorable and wanted you to go into their apartment, that would be reasonable if someone asked the county to do that. But if you're looking to go into someone's home without their permission, that's certainly a different thing entirely. We actually just had that battle in Sarasota recently. I wholeheartedly agree that if rental conditions should not be deplorable. I work closely with code enforcement and also nuisance abatement. I applaud the programs. Any additional assistance that could go their way is also, it goes a very long way. We have meetings with them regularly. But I would say that working closely with code enforcement and nuisance abatement are key contributing factors to making a community better.
Can I ask you another question? Because some of us commissioners have talked at the dais also, and everybody deserves to make a living, but we also notice that these housing units, the rent's going up. And what used to be affordable is not. So you, as an expert that's been doing this, can you give us a clue of what we should do as policymakers when this is happening? I mean, it's a free enterprise. You can do whatever you want. But can you tell me why you think some of them are, and if they are, or if there's just a few that are, it would help because you're in the world.
Well, we recently actually encountered a rent increase on one of our properties. We raised the rents to $625 a month. They were a little bit lower before that because we purchased the property 8 or 9 years ago. Our taxes had gone up, our insurance has gone up. We've improved the property from having hiding spaces where people would try to evade the police and go from one room to another. We've put a new roof on it. So all the increased expenses we've experienced over the years, new tenants who'd been moving in had been paying $625, and we thought it was fair that everyone should pay the same rent. So we equalized it to $625, which is still affordable economic workforce housing in our opinion, for a efficiency apartment with kitchenette. But in terms of what you could do in working with other groups or looking at trying to see what they're doing, I think you're offering incentives for people to build workforce housing. I've heard that earlier today. We see examples of a very strong interest in rehabilitating currently, I guess I'll call them nuisance properties, or properties that have been abandoned, or properties that have been left to disrepair or being put into other similar situations. I think encouraging, really showing that you can make money off this model. We do make money. We do care about people. We have a group of 15 investors on the property, the former currently the Knights Inn. It's soon to be the Robbins Apartments. And the investors in that property are all excited about doing good in addition to making money. So I think showing that it is a money-making venture, you can make money and do good at the same time without being greedy, and just having more examples of this will go a long way.
Thank you.
Commissioner DiSabatino.
Thanks for coming, Travis. And I see Stan Rutstein. He's your real estate go-to guy, finding you property. And it's just so nice seeing millennial young person here with such a great business head. And I know your dad over the last couple months or year or so, and he's such a great role model. And you're really fortunate to have him, and to be following in his footsteps. And I know you own or manage other companies as well, so your team is really busy. Just one thing, the 625, that's all inclusive. That's water, air.
Water, electric, air conditioning. On some properties, it includes cable TV, which goes an extremely long way toward keeping people happy, and I might say so.
Do that.
But,
You're out
yes.
of trouble too.
and I think the most part, the property you have right in Sarasota on 41, and the one at the Knights Inn here, they're more like well, the one in Sarasota is a gated community. Is the one here going to be gated as well?
Absolutely. An important part to establishing community, in our opinion, is putting up a gate. Not a chain link fence or anything like that, but something that looks good. It keeps people out who shouldn't be on the property. When you're dealing with workforce housing, again, people who are one paycheck away from being homeless, or who maybe were at one point, these are people who are at risk. And you can't allow any outside influences. If you've got property managers on site, which we do, and we will have 2 individuals who will be living on site on the property, we can't leave it open to having people come and go as they please. It encourages prostitution. It encourages drug sales, and we can't allow that.
Yeah, and Commissioner DiSabatino, we do have a project coming to us in our next land use meeting, so we need to be careful,
okay.
quasi-judicial.
Oh,
No, it's legislative.
Is it?
Didn't we already do the comp plan amendment?
Yeah.
No, we already
Well,
did the comp plan amendment.
In general.
We okay?
No, we haven't
I
done
was
it
gonna
yet.
ask some
So
questions.
that's
Is it-
legislative.
Is it legislative, not
Yes.
quasi?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I do read the blogs, and one of the blogs was saying that it will encourage that type of behavior, and that's not the case. And sometimes you want to respond to every blog, but you can't. But no, I really,
Not me.
I really commend you for having that, because you do have the wraparound services that you bring in. And I know I've met you and Harvey through the Homeless Coalition, so you're working with them, and that's how we came to pass. So I really think that, excuse me, you're doing such a great job. And I hope you do more projects and get to name them Betsy, Vanessa, and Carol. So, yeah, I just looking forward to working with you in the future. Thanks.
Likewise, thank you, and we have our eyes on a couple properties.
Great. Yes, keep that in mind, definitely. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we actually talk about this here then? It's legislative. By
I'm
asking
hearing
questions?
it's legislative.
Okay. Could you?
Might I inquire, what is it?
Thank you.
Remember,
we may not say it.
This board
Land use.
initiated,
John Barnett,
Second.
let
this
John
board initiated a comp plan amendment on the property.
Sure.
Denied.
And that is still pending. So it's,
Comprehensive plan amendments are legislative in nature.
but there may be a rezone application
Is there-
pending as well. That's
Okay, I just want to be sure. I just want to be sure.
because the next,
That's something
says
else.
it's
Thing is the
legislative.
legislative, which is the future land use.
Madam Chair, if I could ask,
Go ahead.
do we have an application for rezone pending concurrently as well?
That is being submitted, has not yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You shouldn't be ashamed about making money. Everybody, and I know you're not, but I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with making money. You just decent in how you do it, and you look out for people who really need a need. And there should be more people such as yourself and your father in the business that you run that look at it the same way that you do, because there's a profit margin, what you're saying, in what you do in there. And there's profit margins other people can do the same as you, but they choose not to do that. And so I want to thank you again for what you're doing. Do you have an idea on when you're going to move forward with everything on your project?
We would like to move forward on renovating the project, in theory, July 7th. I believe it's when we require it. And then we would start the construction theoretically after it would be approved, which would probably be sometime next year, maybe January.
Okay. And you know, it came up about code enforcement on several issues. I don't advocate code enforcement putting anyone out of business. Don't misunderstand me. However, I do advocate individuals that have properties that's not up to par that continue to keep the same status quo. When I was city commissioner, we had people who had apartments such as those that we're mentioning. They wouldn't even come in and apply for money when we knocked on the door and say, apply for it. So what we did from that standpoint, when they wouldn't apply for this money to rehab the facilities when they qualified because they didn't want to submit anything. Code violations we seen from the road, we say we're going to enforce those. And most came to the table, we used CDBG money and CRA money, and we purchased those properties. Right off the 8th Avenue in Palmetto, directly behind this store, the Family Dollar store, you will see Habitat for Humanities, one of the largest complexes they built there. We purchased that because it was slum and blighted. We went and knocked on the door, by the way. He says, it's cheap for me to sell it. We purchased it, Habitat houses are there, and it's on the tax roll. We had law enforcement going there every 2 hours. It don't happen anymore. We got the sheriff already asking for $7 million increase. I wonder what area that's going to go in. I can take a guess, I already know. So if we don't clean up these communities, we just feed into the same situation that we have. And I say that because to get individuals to the table, what we're going to really need to do it, and I'm convinced everybody on here is for affordable houses. It's just how we do it, how we get where we're going. But the other thing that you may have not considered, and we had the problem in Palmetto when I was there, there's some high-end people who don't want you to have affordable housing because it's competition. You haven't thought about that yet. We had it. People outright was telling us in Palmetto who had an interest that why would I want that, because it competes with what I got going. So we've got to understand that we got to put something strong where it convinces people to come into the affordable housing market. It's out there. They may not tell you directly, but there's some individuals that do not want affordable houses because it's competitive. And you can sell more affordable housing, workforce housing, whatever definition you want to use, than you can high-end houses. And you can have a mixture of high-end, middle, you know. So I just want to put that on the table. So certainly they're going to say that's going to bring drugs and everything to the community because nobody wants that project, because it's a hand up in life, not a hand out. And they're protecting their investment. So certainly they're going to blog and say, oh, well, no, that shouldn't happen. And that's what's taking place. So I'm already prepared for that. The bottom line is when we put a concrete affordable housing plan with incentives, land, and everything in there, you have some high-end people first one to the table. I believe that, but as of right now, they're not coming. And they already stated that in one meeting. I mean, they're not coming to sit down and listen to us talk about affordable housing when we haven't seen a seriousness of land and setback zoning and all of that in these high crime areas that really, every house you build, you're gonna move a segment of someone in the community that's really committing crimes in that area. And I have elderly, telling me all the time, I'm too old to move, and you got that still going down the road. I'm locked in where I'm at. When you're gonna clean this up, revalidation, what we have to get these properties back on the tax roll. So it's not tough for me. You just got to make some tough decisions. But when we make these tough decisions, it'll be easy for staff to do their job. I can tell you that.
Well, if I could add to that, I mean, I'm sure that what you're saying is true in certain instances. I have no doubt. However, a lot of times, different areas in the county I know want workforce housing or affordable housing. It's necessary. It's needed. I know in Lakewood Ranch, they're getting ready to start building some affordable or workforce housing, I guess I should call it. So, yes, maybe some areas, maybe it is true that some people might not want it being built. I don't know, but I can tell you, I know I've heard from a lot of people in different areas in Manatee that do want it. So, I think it remains to be seen. Commissioner DiSabatino.
Last thing, we just heard earlier that there's a limited pot of money, and you go out there and you work hard to get it and bring it home. And we know that there are a few of the Van Groffs and other people that are at the table, and it's basically first come, first served. And since they know the rules of engagement, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to participate and help us move this forward. But we also need to have in the discussion the student housing along the university corridors as well, and for the really young ones out there just coming out of school or in school. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear or see on the screen any yays or nays when I had the idea or was asking what your all thoughts were of all these great people that came before us today, these builders, as well as, this young kid, well, they're all kids to us now, that's doing something with the rentals. What do you guys think about a think tank with our bigger business developer community and these people? I mean, again, just us hearing today, it's all education. And I just wanted to know what you all thought. You thought no, yes, or do you think it's something that we should proceed forward with?
I think we need to finish with neighborhood services, get through all of the workshops that Sherry has coming our way, and then have a workshop and make some decisions on all the information that we've received on how to move forward. That's what I think, because I'm still getting information. But that's just me. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have no problem completing this here, and also what Commissioner Whitmore is talking about also. And, we talk about job creation, we talk about developing business, and we talk about encouraging businesses to come to Manatee County. We got to realize that these individuals have to have somewhere to stay. And guess what? They're moving over to Sun City and Ruskin. Building houses over there because when you bring people here, they can't afford to live here. And you can go right across the line, and I've mentioned it before, and get you a home for maybe $60,000 to $80,000 less than you can here right now. So we bring in business here, but they're not spending their taxes here. They're working and going across the line. So, we want them to build houses here, and you're high end, and I've told you, you don't need to go to the seminar. They'll tell you the people from out of state are the ones buying those houses. They're not your local people buying houses. The one that's moving down from up north, buying the high-end homes. There's not many people here doing that. So, and Commissioner Whitmore has said it over and over again, and at certain places that, nobody wants to move and stay for different reasons. And as you got people who are coming back home now after they want to retire, They have nowhere to stay. They're staying home with mom right now until they can find a house that they can qualify for. I'm talking about people who got good income because they're retired now and want to move back to Manatee County. So it's a tough situation.
Commissioner Bedak.
Yeah, we've heard from a lot of people that are working on this problem. Harvey and Travis have taken on, redevelopment of some pretty underutilized properties and building rentals at a very low rate that solves, a part of the problem. But Manatee County is an extremely desirable place to live. We have to deal with that. It's going to continue to be as we move through this baby boom retirement demographic. The challenges of finding affordable property are going to be pretty bad for the next, for this cycle. I mean, it's just reality that, we see so many homes being built. And as I like to tell people who say to me, when are we going to stop all that building? I said, well, as soon as we get Georgia to build that wall across the Florida-Georgia line, I guess that's when we'll finally stop building homes for people that are trying to move down here. I mean, this is the United States of America. People get to come here and live here. We can't stop them from doing that. And that's creating a market that has home prices up. We all saw it in the paper. So how do we try to keep our young people here, how to keep them housed? That is a conversation that's going to be continuing. I'm not so sure a think tank is a good idea, because this has been a discussion that's been ongoing for a long time, and we're going to continue to discuss it. I'm grateful that we have partners that are looking at the specific segments and trying to help the people that need it the most, as I believe Travis and Harvey are working with people. Obviously, I don't know how. I mean, it seems like my cable bill is almost $600 a month, so I'm not really sure how you're able to get that done.
I don't know, but I think it sounds really good.
All right, well, it's not quite that bad. But yeah, I'm not, yes, we do need to continue the discussion, and I think we will continue the discussion. But working on, with the resources we have and trying to find the land, how are we going to get some more land? I think that's really something we need to really focus on.
I have a question for John Barnott. I see him standing in the back. I know he's shaking his head. No. Just out of curiosity, a quick question. Foreclosures. How are we doing in Manatee County on foreclosures? I know that you're keeping a list, et cetera. What is the status of all those?
I haven't had a chance to talk to Sherry about that yet.
Oh. Oops.
But there's some things that we're looking at. We met with the vendor as late as yesterday to make the list of all our vacant foreclosed properties in Manatee County, along with all the information needed to give to the Van Groff business model, to people like Steve and others, to say, look, here's all these vacant foreclosed homes. You contact the bank or the mortgage lender or whoever and try to strike a deal. Mm-hmm. If you can get it for 20 grand, put 20 in it. That's their business model. Mm-hmm. It works. And, there you have. And that's infill. And that's cleaning up the neighborhoods that we have.
Blighted areas.
This all came about, I can't remember the meeting we were at, but it was all the directors, and Sherry made a passion plea to all of her colleagues, the other directors, to what can we do to solve this problem, to make it better. So we're all out working on our own. I'm supposed to come back to her when we have time and say, we can do this, or we can do this. There's a number of things that we're looking at in BADS. Fee reductions, this list. I'm going to go personally speak to the Remodeler Council to talk to them to see if there's any interest in that group. There's also another area that we're trying to keep focused on, and it's vacant homes. I see these don't fit in the foreclosed model that our vendor does. But we've got a lot of property out there. I don't know how many. It's hard to get your finger on it, but people have died, and there's been nobody to take care of them, so the property sits vacant. And we first get into it when it becomes overgrown or trash and debris or something like this. And we're trying to list all of those properties. And most of them don't have a mortgage lender at the end. So now you got to try to track down next of kin. Where is it? And that's a little more difficult. And I'm trying to convince the vacant vendor to, why don't you take these too and help us find these people? It's a little more difficult, so it doesn't really work for their price point for service, but we'll negotiate something maybe. That's an issue, and you can do that the same way if you can make these available to people like the Vingroffs, the Reinhardts, and anybody else that wants it. And we were going to, work with Sherry and her group and say, here's a list. Give it to anybody you want to. We don't care. And update that every month.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, that's it. I mean, we doing that in Pebble, not on a bigger land that the county can do it, because on 5th Street in Jackson Park, the Montgomery family, we just did that. We had the bank that deeded. It deeded it actually to the city, the CRA, and we renovated and put a family in that home, and the house they had, they deeded it to us, and because we're going to need that for government property, and that's how you do it. They've had about several banks, deeded it because it's nobody's staying there. They're not taking care of it, and we quit being nice with the code fines, to be honest with you, because they were just abusing it all over. And someone like Magic County probably have all of them, but you got a program here already. But that's what you do, exactly what he said. You find people that can come in there, invest into it, and put somebody in that home.
I saw him standing in the back, and I knew that was being looked at, and I just thought it was a good time to bring that forward.
I'm glad you brought it up. I'm excited about hearing that.
Mr. Barnott, thank you for sharing that. Okay, I don't have anyone else on the board.
Wait.
So,
Did Travis have some other thing?
Travis, you have anything else?
I just wanted to say I only paid for 2-hour parking, so I didn't pay, but I gotta run. But it really is an affordable model. You can really do a lot of good, and now more than ever, there's a lot of need for affordable housing, and you can really screen your tenants. I mean, if you put in basic screening and do a background check, you don't even have to take credit into consideration. Just, is this someone who has a history of selling drugs actively, or is this someone who goes and gets evicted from place to place? And if you do that, you can still pick the cream of the crop and have, by word of mouth alone, with no advertising costs, a pretty full apartment complex. We can fill 60 spaces in a month. We have a huge waiting list too. Wow. And I just wanted to say it's easier now than ever to get into workforce housing, and I recommend anyone who's interested in thinking about it. It's difficult and it is hard work, and you have to deal with a lot of interesting personalities, but it's doable. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeSabatino.
And Mr. Barnott, I'm glad you're working on that. And if you could eventually have your list and put it online, and then link each property, have a hyperlink to the property appraiser, and that way it's easier for people to find. That would be a help.
Well, the list that we're going to come up with is going to have all the information you need.
Got it.
So I'm not sure you need that link to the property
Not
appraiser.
gonna
But
have
if
to
it
go
helps
anywhere.
them, yeah, sure, we can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Denise? Okay, because we have 2 more items we need to cover by noon, correct?
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Travis. Yeah, there's 2 more.
Yeah, let everybody else talk too. Who's here that wants to talk? We've been hanging.
Yes, we wanted to cover the focus on the rental trends, the affordable housing builders. You've heard from them. There's some great people. When we provide you with our recommendations, we'll give you some more background too on folks like Mr. Cheese and others that have been building for so long, hundreds, into the thousands of homes they've either done rehabs or replacements. As you know, when everything's good out there in the private sector, it's very hard in our job to find people to build. So it's important to help out the ones that are definitely working on our project. We also wanted to remind everyone that we're culminating this 5th work session to have recommendations and implementation at a workshop in August 16th, and we have noted all the comments. We have a big summary of all the comments, and the ones that have been repeated, some that have been talked about today, are actually ideas that we've been working on as well with that list. And so we thank you for allowing us to provide this input today. And not sure if you're wanting any public comment today, but there were some that requested some time. Thank you.
Thank you. We will get to public comment. We can do it now or later. Sherry, do people need to get back to work? We can open it now if you'd like. Doesn't matter.
We do have the second group that is also related to housing, the Food Deserts and the Alice group, and that's the next topic. And we did schedule them to happen today because it has a relationship to the housing issue. So it's completely up to the board.
Okay. I'll tell you what, why don't we stick with the agenda then, and we'll do public comment at the end, and we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to hurry right on to the next topic. There are 3 related topics to both our housing and income-restricted families in the community. The first one is going to be presented by Kelsey Kapler from our Building and Development Services Department, and it's the Alice information. And the second one is from Aaron Laird, who's our community health specialist with the Florida Health Department at Manatee County. And then lastly, we're going to conclude with Pat Johnson, who is our whole child coordinator within Manatee County. And these are all related to families that are income restricted through housing and health. Kelsey.
Welcome, Kelsey.
All right, and then I have a PowerPoint. Oh, there we are. All right, again, I'm Kelsey Kapler, and we thought it would be appropriate, since we're talking about affordable housing for the workforce, to actually highlight and talk about the workforce and some financial challenges that they're facing. So first, I'm going to give a little refresher on what exactly it means to be in the Alice population, and then kind of use that as a filter to look at Manatee County. So first, who is ALICE? It's an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed Individuals. And the big thing there is to focus on the word employed. These people are working, and a lot of times they're working multiple jobs, sometimes multiple part-time, a full-time, and a part-time. And then income constrained and asset limited actually kind of go hand in hand, where they're not making enough money to actually save money and to kind of to have assets. They don't have a savings, and then that makes it difficult for down payments for cars and housing. And the income constraint limits which housing is available to them, how they get around, their food choices, as well as health care. So why are we looking at it through ALICE? Because a lot of us know about the poverty level, but the whole thing with that is the poverty level is kind of outdated, and it's general for the entire United States, but it makes it difficult to look at Manatee County or just local areas specifically. The poverty level was developed in 1965, and it hasn't really been updated in how they calculate it since the 70s. Whereas the ALICE threshold, it was recently developed in 2009 in New Jersey, and it went so well there, it started to expand to other states. And Florida was one of the first ones to jump on board with that. And the ALICE threshold is calculated based on the actual cost of basic needs, such as health care, child care, housing, etc. And that's in specific counties, whereas, again, the poverty level is for the U.S. as a whole. So when we look at Manatee County, I'm again going to emphasize the poverty threshold is much different. For an individual, a single adult, you're considered in poverty if you make less than $11,770 a year. Whereas HUD has come up with this household survival budget, how much it actually costs to survive, as $20,809 a year. That's almost double. And we see that again with a family of 4, which is 2 adults, a toddler, and an infant. To be in poverty, you're considered making less than $24,250 a year for that household, whereas the actual cost to survive and get all your basic needs is around $52,000. And so the ALICE population is above that poverty threshold, but they're just falling short of that household survival budget. And so we see that about 30% of the county fall within that limit, where they're above poverty, but not making quite enough to meet their basic needs. And 13% of the households in the county are actually below that poverty line, so they're making, if they're an individual, less than $12,000 a year. So if we put those two together, that's what we're considering struggling in Manatee County. That's 43%, which is about half of the county. Aside from just income restraint and not having assets, the people who fall within the ALICE category also have limited access to housing, transportation, food, and health, so your basic needs. And I'm kind of going to go through each of those and highlight some of the challenges that we face specifically in Manatee County. So since we were just talking about housing, I'll just go over this pretty quickly, but the ALICE population, again, since they're asset limited, they don't have that savings, they're generally renters because they can't put the down payment for a house. And as you can see with this figure, that shows the percent of income paid for housing. You'll see that renters generally pay more. And it's considered extreme housing burden if you're paying over 35% of your income towards your housing. And that was according to the Alice report, and HUD actually had that lowered to 30%. So that's about 50% of our renters are an extreme housing burden, and of 36% of owners. And some barriers to housing and why it's difficult is that just the fact that we have the low wage jobs and there's that income constraint. So the workers just don't earn enough to make rent sometimes, or to get that higher rent, or to buy their first home. And Denise had talked about the SHIP program to help enable affordable housing and relief for the cost burden. But at least according to the report that I was reading, the allocation for that fund has dropped about 40%, from a little over 2 million to a little under 1.5 million, but it sounded like it may have gone up to 1.8 million, which would be great. And within that past 10 years, it's dropped to around 350,000, and twice there had been no funding at all, which is extremely important because we just talked about, or Denise in the last presentation, how useful it is. And with transportation, that's important to the Alice population because a big proportion of them don't have cars. And so you can see about 50% of the MCAT riders made less than $20,000 a year. And they also fall into that Alice category there. And there's a survey done to see what the purpose of the ride was. And about 36% of that was to and from work. So then just remember I said that these employed individuals sometimes have multiple part-time jobs, and that can be complex schedules. So they're not just getting one way to work. They're going right in between. The other purposes were for groceries, food access, prescriptions, and medical appointments for their health, and actually at post-secondary education, getting to and from school. Some issues with riding the buses was the span of service, the times that they ran. The service ends generally around 7:30 and has limited runs on Sundays. But if you're thinking about this Alice population, a good amount of them might be servers. Restaurants are generally open past 7:30. They're open on weekends, so they've got to get to and from work if they're relying on the transportation. And also the service area, there's a lot of stops and a good amount of runs in the main urban core, but the county is expanding towards the east, and it's difficult to keep up with that because of the limited resources, and it's hard to get buses and routes out there. But that's where a lot of the new employment is. And Aaron's going to go into this after me, so I'll go pretty quickly through food access. It's the access to not just food, but to healthy foods. And Manatee County does have a food desert, which is considered areas of low access to healthy foods, but also in areas of low income. And you can see that with this next one, I hope you can see it pretty clearly. The yellow areas are low income areas. And if you can see the hashed areas, that's your low access area where there's not a healthy food source within a half mile. I had considered healthy food sources to be your grocery stores. Convenience stores I did not include because if you've ever tried to make a healthy meal out of a convenience store selection, you don't have your fruits and vegetables. I mean, you're more likely to get a microwave meal, and it's a lot more expensive.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Oh, sure.
So these yellow areas that you have, you're saying there's not a grocery store in any of these yellow areas?
The hashed areas, it's the center. I took the center of each tract, and there was not a grocery store, the green squares there, within a half mile of that. And I took the population center, sorry. Can you see the difference between the yellow and then the hashed marks there? Okay. So the red there are fast food options.
Thank you.
And they're much more readily available, whereas a supermarket, you'll see they're much more sparse. And about 30% of the residents in the county are considered low access. That doesn't mean that they're not all low income, so it doesn't matter because you can just take a car to a grocery store that's further away. But about 10% of the residents are both low access and low income. So that means that they fall within that food desert. And that might contribute to the fact that 17.4% of adults in the county don't generally get enough fruits and veggies, and it could contribute to the obesity and overweight problem. And just some reasons why there might be this food access barrier is, again, lack of ownership, and as I brought up before, lack of public transportation, but also just where the supermarket is. When I did my analysis, it was as the crow flies, but you have to think about the walk like around the block, and there may be highways or major roads in your way as well. And that half mile is just a one-way walk, but then you've got to walk back laden down with groceries. And Aaron's actually going to go over community-determined solutions in greater detail, but just know that they've surveyed people and they've come up with their preferred solutions to the food access issue. And I also thought it was interesting to look at the SNAP participation in the county. It's just, the participation has just skyrocketed. I don't know for sure if that's because of just word of mouth, more people know about it, or if it's because of need. I can't really comment on that, but it's just about doubled since 2007. And now 99% of the people in poverty are participating, which is great to hear. In terms of health access, what do I mean by health? It does include health insurance, health care, but also your access to healthy activities, your, again, eating food access, your education on how to be healthy. And so in Manatee County, in overall health, if we're taking all those factors into consideration, we were ranked 20th out of 37 of just the urban counties. And so we just barely eked past that bottom 50% mark. We're in the top 50, but I think we're in the 54th percentile or something. And again, location and transportation will greatly affect your ability to maintain health. Where you live, safety of your neighborhood, your access to healthy activities. Can you go for a run, or is there a park nearby? And access to transportation, maybe if you go to the gym or you go somewhere else to go to a park, how easy is it for you to get there? And also your transportation, how do you get to those medical appointments or pick up your prescriptions? So what I really want to take away is that all of these factors, housing, transportation, food access, and health, are very interconnected. As I pointed out, where you live, your housing kind of dictates what transportation you might be able to access, what foods are near you, and how easy it is to get to any of your medical appointments, pick up prescriptions. Transportation, same thing. And what food's available will also affect your health. And so then I just kind of wanted to end it with the actual cost of living. So if you take into consideration childcare, transportation, which we talked about, housing, food, health, and miscellaneous expenses, that's how much it costs to get by, and that's what that household survival budget is based off of. So I'm just going to quickly break down some of the stuff that we haven't covered and then just show you a good summary there. So childcare costs were a lot more than I had anticipated. If you look at it month to month, infants are generally, it costs a lot more, both part-time and full-time for care. And then you get a little, as kids get older and then get into school age, it's cheaper. But generally, it's around $300 to almost $600 a month for just one child. So imagine a family with a toddler and an infant. That's going to be closing in on about $1,000. And if you look at it annually, that's, again, just for one child, it's almost it can be up to almost $7,000 a month. And I just took into consideration, I didn't take into consideration subsidized schools nor private schools because they're on both extremes. So just the general prices for, care. Just looking at car costs, this is with depreciation. It's about $725 a month, but you're not giving money towards depreciation every month, so I took that out. And with the cost of insurance, fuel, maintenance, paying back your car, registration and tires, it's about $420 a month, or a little over $5,000 annually. And this is the graphic that I think pretty much sums it up. At the top here, nursing assistants, groundskeepers, waiters, waitresses, and retail positions. I chose those because they were considered the occupations in the county that are gaining the most new jobs. And then at the bottom there, it shows the household budget for both a single adult and a family of 4. And these red lines are where the poverty level says, that's where the poverty level is. And that's basically saying, if you're making this, you should be fine. But you can see it's falling for a single adult just at about half the amount that it actually costs to live. And again, the second one over here is for the family of 4, and it's just about half. But if you just were to take out the budget and look at it, it would look like everyone, the poverty level is only about half of your salary, so it looks like you're being able to put away $500 to $1,000 towards savings. But when I put on the actual expense to survive for your basic needs, waiters and waitresses aren't quite making it. Retail, I think you're putting away about $50 a month if you're not spending on anything else. And I just want to emphasize that this is just the bare minimum, your most basic needs. That other column might include cleaning supplies or toiletries, clothes for work, phone services, and taxes. But it doesn't include cable, eating out, entertainment, linens, if you need to replace linens, and most importantly, savings and money towards education. So I've just got this if you'd like more information and which reports I was looking at.
I do have a question. On the salaries, can you go back to that, please? That one. These are, the yellow are monthly salaries?
Yes.
Okay. I have to tell you that I own a retail store, and I can tell you that all of the employees in my store make twice that monthly for retail.
And so this was based on Florida jobs averages for all retail professions in general in the county.
So these are not like the waiters and waitresses. I mean, I know a bunch, and so this isn't a part-time position that you're saying these salaries are. These are full-time positions.
Yes, based on the Florida jobs. So I could look. Maybe
it's different in different counties, maybe?
Yeah, I can look and see how they calculated it.
Because I just, that just happens to be something I know a little bit about, and I find them low. That's why I was just curious.
It's low.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Benak.
Okay, I think I might have missed your introduction. Do you work for the county?
Oh, yep. I'm interning.
Excuse me?
I'm interning for building and development.
Okay, I saw your name tag in building and development. And I thought, wow, I wonder what you do in building and development. So, so you're an intern. Okay,
yes.
Great. Are you related to Karen? No, you look like her daughter.
I thought
That's what I thought.
Thing I asked.
Oh, okay. You're presenting information that is in the Alice report. Is that correct?
Correct. And then I also summarized some information from the health department.
Okay. All right. So So this was basically just a summary of where we are with the Alice population, so it gives us a perspective when we talk about affordable housing and other things. I just wanted the context on, maybe I missed it. So
Just to give more information on the workforce that we're actually trying to get housing for, and kind of just to highlight the financial challenges.
One other connection you can make is when you were discussing the very low, extremely low, when we were talking about levels of support, these folks are lower than they're in the extremely low category.
Evidently.
And you can see the challenges. If you remember the Housing First model that was discussed, I think in the session number 3, it relates to all of these factors.
Right. So are there any efforts underway throughout the county and anything? I mean, I know that Alice is a great document in terms of providing information, but is there anything being done with it? I really don't know.
There are work groups that the United Way is leading, and we've all participated, all the departments that have a relationship to it, especially Neighborhood Services, Community Services, the County Administrator's Office, and we are working on various topics. I think the relationship to housing is that we've all noted that if we can assist with an affordable housing situation, many of these other issues with health, transportation can be addressed as well. It improves the circumstance for them and makes the housing situation an easier relationship. So there's some work going on in each one of those realms. Health as well. Obviously, it's a part of our healthcare review, these folks, and what kind of access they have to care.
And I mean, this is really a good report. I really appreciated the work that you did to bring this forward to make it make sense. And I'm just going to say, because I was surprised when I was at the Turning Points luncheon to hear them actually asking for people to spread the word about the healthcare resources that they have there that are available.
Amazing.
They said they have capacity to help people. So I said, okay, every place I get a chance, I'm going to tell people that we need to be directing people to go there and see what kind of resources they might have available to them, because that's what they asked us to do, to spread the word. So, and Karen's getting up. I want to make sure I'm addressing this to the right people. I brought it up at my church that I had heard that they have healthcare resources that they are willing to utilize.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Karen Winden, Deputy Administrator. That capacity has just stood up in the last couple of weeks. Dr. Cavillo, that spoke at the luncheon the other day, has just come on board and is, as you could tell, very enthusiastic about some of the opportunities that they have there. So I think it's going to be a great partnership, and I think we can refer people to them. We'll be monitoring that to see how that capacity is changing, what the availability of services will continue to be. I know that the one area that they still don't have capacity is in the dental field. They are booked up pretty, their appointments are out several months still as they try to find additional resources to manage that piece. But it is an exciting time to see that free clinic start to expand the opportunities and provide a different level of services.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Erin Laird. She's going to continue on with the presentation, and then after that, Pat Johnson will finalize it with the Whole Child Project.
Can we get a copy of
the presentation? Just a quick comment.
Yes.
I don't know how you folks are taken by this, but it seems to me it's a very bleak picture, because it almost tells you that there's not much hope of addressing the housing problem when the wage and economic situation is so dire. And it's a national problem. It's not just a Manatee County problem. It looks like it's going to take somebody bringing economic prosperity back to our country in order to solve this problem at the local level as well as the housing problem. Anybody else?
I would agree with that.
Feel the same way?
Commissioner Benak.
I didn't mention a name.
No, don't, please.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, we need to bring
talking about me.
economic prosperity
Talking about me.
back to this country. And we need to, you know, every time I hear these statistics and I think, how do these people make it? Well, the way they make it is they team up, they work together, they have family, they have, you know, they live together. You know, most kids have to, you know, get roommates, have to live together until their jobs go up higher. But we need to keep our eye on the ball and continue. You know, I think about it now that I'm running again for office. You know, what I said 4 years ago, the biggest issue was jobs. Now, guess what? The biggest issue is still to get decent paying jobs and to diversify our economy so that people don't have to be stuck in low-wage jobs. We're always going to have low-wage jobs. We're always going to have waiters and waitresses. You know, but as Commissioner Ball pointed out, you know, here people probably tip 20%. Maybe not. I hope they do at least tip 20%.
At least.
So hopefully they're making more, you know.
Depending on where you are in the county.
You know, hopefully people are doing that, but it is a constant struggle. And it is a conversation that's being had throughout this country. You know, what do we do about the low-wage jobs? How does that go? And I discuss it with my kids all the time because, you know, they're in that demographic that is dealing with it. And
just like I did at their age.
Right, and it's not new, but you know, just bumping up the minimum wage is not the answer, in my humble opinion.
You'll have businesses close.
Yeah, and so we have to think of ways to offer education opportunities so that people can work their way up. I mean, I was interested to see the nursing assistant to be up there that high. I think, again, look at what's happened with nursing wages, because supply and demand, that's what we live by.
That's
so,
right.
Appreciate your comments, Commissioner Russell.
And I think you hit it right on the nose. Education and housing, two very important issues. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Mayor Bustle just said. And in fact, he alluded to this about a year ago when I first got on here about the income disparities and what people actually are making. You know, people are maybe a check or two away from being homeless. And if you look at these numbers, the presentation that she did is very staggering. What we really take for granted, most don't have. And it's a very difficult situation. We've really got a battle to take place, and good paying jobs is something that we really got to focus on. And from the standpoint of the income that she was showing, I mean, when you got a family, and you got kids, you got daycare, I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me, to be honest with you.
And Commissioner Smith, I agree. Good paying jobs, I think we've been trying to work on that in this county with our economic development that we've been doing. And I think, again, the key is education. We've got to get a lot of our citizens back in MTC or wherever the case may be. I mean, we need to be training people in Manatee County for a lot of these jobs that we are bringing in, that we've been very fortunate to get to come to Manatee County. So it's more than just what I think this board alone can do. It's going to take the entire county to work on this issue, including the residents, as far as education. So I don't have anyone else on the board. Yes, ma'am.
And I also had a presentation saved in that same file. I don't know how to bring it up.
She an intern?
And while she's doing that, Sherry, there was a request that these PowerPoints be emailed to us if we could.
Yes.
We will.
Thank you.
We will do that.
I'll go back to pull us right here to the bottom. Oh, I'm going up. I need to go down.
Just go to the VGA, and then that will be it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to be digging in a little bit more specifically into that food access issue that was touched upon in the Alice presentation. The map that she showed pretty much mirrors identically the map that you'll find on the USDA that shows food deserts in the county. And that algorithm takes into account average distance to a store and average income, percentage of the community enrolled in SNAP and WIC and things like that as well. So recognizing this as an issue in the county, Florida Department of Health in Manatee County and in Sarasota County partnered to do a year-long assessment to find out from residents themselves what their barriers are to accessing healthy foods and consuming healthy foods, and what their perceived solutions in their communities are. So I won't spend a lot of time on the methodology, but I just want to show the robust community engagement that we did, so you know that these answers aren't coming from us. They are coming from residents living and working in food deserts. We started out with what are called key informant interviews, talking to leaders in the community, pastors, principals. We also worked with neighborhood services quite a bit to actually look at which neighborhoods within these food deserts we should focus on, which ones have cohesive neighborhoods that could support programming, because we couldn't reasonably look at the whole county. And those key informants helped connect us to people in the county that we were able to get focus groups set up. In Manatee County, we did about 8 focus groups in schools, churches, neighborhood associations. So that's an image of a focus group done at Samoset Elementary with a parent group. How do I go forward here? I'm not clicking. Sorry.
You're okay.
Concurrently, while we were doing those focus groups, we also had 2 sort of non-traditional ways of collecting information from residents, and one was called Photo Voice. We gave residents photos or cameras and allowed them to take photos of what made it challenging in their communities to access food, what made it easier to access food, and just generally what they would want to share with decision makers. We also partnered with New College of Florida students to collect recorded personal narratives, stories, and interviews of people living and working in food deserts. And after we completed the focus groups, we pulled some themes from those and created a door-to-door survey that we administered using a CDC tool to go randomly throughout our food desert census tracts. And it delved more deeply into those themes to confirm whether or not it was just focus group participants or if that was representative of a wider sample within the county, and also to get some planning data. So if we're learning that these are issues, how can we actually plan some solutions for these neighborhoods? And after we finished collecting all of the results, which I'm about to share, we convened a cross-county steering committee with Sarasota County, lots of partners and stakeholders from both sides, to share those results, take them back out into the community, and figure out what we can do to address this. So what did our residents tell us? I'm going to start off with 2 quotes from our focus groups. These are both Manatee County residents. This person said, "In this community, there's not really stores. There are food stores or whatever, but it's just like going to a gas station." And another person shared, "When you're low income, it's hard to go to the grocery store and pick out a meal that's healthy and also cheap." So our focus group themes centered around 2 either barriers or solutions. And the primary barriers that residents expressed were cost, availability, and a lack of knowledge. And their desired solutions were places to grow food, centrally located market options like farm stands, and classes. So again, we wanted to use the survey to dig a little deeper, see if these were really themes, and find out some more information from our residents. So one of our themes, as I mentioned, was that residents perceive fruits and vegetables as being expensive. And as Kelsey mentioned, if your only option is a gas station or convenience store, then most certainly they seem fairly expensive compared to a grocery store. And what we found, if I can get this to work, is that our survey participants agreed. In both Manatee and Sarasota counties, over half, 73% in Manatee County, said that if fruits and vegetables were cheaper, I would buy them more. And again, they perceive healthy food retailers as being far away, and our survey participants agreed with this point as well. About half in both counties, a little less than half, 40% in Manatee County, said, well, I'd get them if they were closer to my home. This came up quite a lot in Rabonia, especially. Food desert residents want fresh, affordable options closer to their homes. And again, you'll see that the survey results matched that. In both counties, over half of our survey respondents said that they would shop in a farm stand if there was one in their neighborhood. But we know farm stands go out of business all the time, so this was where we sort of tried to gather a little more specific planning data. So in this case, we asked questions like, what days should the farm stand be open? And not surprisingly, about half of our respondents said on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I know that's when I do a lot of my grocery shopping, so. Food desert residents want places in their neighborhoods where they can grow their own food. This themed tremendously in our focus groups, and it matched the survey results as well with everything else. About half in both counties of our survey participants said that they would like to grow their own food. In focus groups, these conversations seem to theme around community gardens. Everyone was talking about community gardens. So we asked, where do you want to grow your own food? Would you like to grow it in a community garden? And we were surprised to see that actually, only 32%, which is still significant, but only 32% said community garden. And those numbers of, yes, I want to grow in a community garden tended to be clustered in specific neighborhoods, where they would be more likely to be able to support a community garden. But we asked next, would you like to grow food in your own yard? And 84% of our survey respondents said yes, they want to be able to grow in their own yard, but they need help. So we asked, what do you need to make that happen? There we go.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a map of where the 32%? You said most of them were together in different neighborhoods. Do you have a map showing those geographic areas where they would support a community garden? I think that would be pretty beneficial for us.
We could probably create a map. We don't have it mapped out right now. We have all of our surveys coded by the census blocks that they were collected in. So it could be possible for sure. So we asked them next, 84%, that's huge, want to be able to grow in their own yards. What do you need to make that happen? 85% of people said seeds and materials. Everybody likes free stuff. But 72% said they need tips. I have a small yard, or I live in an apartment. I just have a patio. What can I do with that space? And 66% said everything I find is about, in Florida we have this opposite growing season, so I don't know when to plant things here. So information on growing in small yards and in Florida was what people said specifically would be helpful for them. And then a huge thing that we didn't anticipate and didn't prompt for was fruit trees. Tons of people brought up the idea of fruit trees. You can see over half in both counties brought up fruit trees. I heard a lot of, we used to have them everywhere, I don't see them anymore. So our residents would love to have community fruit trees here. I'll tell you, sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what's happening. And finally, another huge theme was education. Not knowing how to prepare or how to budget was a huge barrier, but residents want to take the time to take a class and get that knowledge. So we asked specifically, there are a lot of things we can learn about in these within that field. What do you want to know about? And not surprisingly, considering how many people want to grow in their own yards, the top class in Manatee County was vegetable gardening. People were also interested in budgeting classes, cooking with fruits and vegetables, and general nutrition classes. So again, we asked, what would you need to actually go to these classes? And in both, this says Manatee, but in both counties, the top two answers were bring the classes to us, have them in our neighborhood. We can host it in our church if you need a kitchen. And if you can keep it under an hour, that would be great. Some of the other things that came up were if you could provide dinner when we're in that class, or childcare, or transportation to the class if it's not in our neighborhood. So, like I mentioned, we did a couple of non-traditional data collection to get our residents to be able to share their experiences of living in a food desert. This photo was taken by a resident of County Housing, and both of these photos were by the same fellow. And when I asked what he'd like to share about that photo, he said, "Look at that, that's sad right there. That's what my fridge and cabinet always look like. I don't have a car, so I gotta walk to the store. I would go to a pantry, but I can't get there. I do have a lot of peanut butter. People are always giving me peanut butter. Sometimes I just eat it with a spoon for dinner." So I know this was a powerful image for me because my fridge and cabinets are always packed, and I still complain that I don't have any food. And I know we're all running late on time. I won't play any of these today, but we did collect recorded personal narratives, and with the video, the link will be included. The full video is 10 minutes, and it shares about 6 stories of people, their challenges, but also how people are overcoming and making it work in their communities. So those are really wonderful stories, again, collected by students at New College of Florida. They're all on YouTube. So what did we do with this? Again, it was cross-county. The same type of data was collected in Sarasota because there are such similarities between our counties. And I'm sure you saw in the data, residents expressed a lot of the same concerns in both counties. So we wanted the Action Council to be cross-county as well, to share best practices, reduce duplication. These photos are from our first kickoff meeting back in September, I believe, with partners and stakeholders from both counties to figure out what can we do to address these concerns and honor the time that residents took to share their feelings and their opinions. So some of the current projects that we have going on, and this isn't health department owned, this is community led. We're working with the Manatee County Property Management, the Ag Extension, Volunteer Master Gardeners, Florida Native Plants Nursery, Manatee Rare Fruit Tree Council on a number of projects, including developing a community garden at the health department. We've also been able to align services. There's a small community garden in Eternity Temple Church. I don't know if anyone's heard Pastor Livington. I know he's very involved. So we've been able to align him with some more services from the Ag Extension and get their garden going. We're working on developing a fruit tree orchard potentially with property management, aligning education with those communities that said they wanted classes, and the Volunteer Master Gardeners developed a home garden program that they used MLK Day of Service funding to go out into communities. I believe their kickoff community was in Rabonia, and they taught the residents how to grow things in small buckets in their yard. And we're supporting a mobile market development with Gerald Singh Community Farm, which can go specifically into those food desert neighborhoods, because farm stands came up a lot, but it often came up in neighborhoods where it wouldn't be a viable business for a farmer. There's not the pedestrian traffic. So if we can move that around to various neighborhoods, it can potentially become a viable business then for the farmer as well. And the contact actually for this project is Amber Mills. She's at a training in Atlanta today, so that's why I'm here instead of her, but she is going to be a wonderful resource if you have any questions beyond today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Burnett?
Comment, I'm glad that you're working with our Ag and Natural Resources folks. I mean, they do a great job of providing a lot of education, and there's even a lot of education online. I know not everybody has access to a computer, but if you go to the Florida Department of Ag, FDEC or whatever they're called, that they have a lot of information about how to grow stuff in buckets and how to do a garden, because it is difficult in Florida. Because of
Extension has been a
bugs
wonderful
and the heat,
yeah,
and the sandy soil.
And fruit trees are not easy either.
No, there's a huge challenge with that.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments?
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and have Pat come up and have Erin stay here with Kelsey. Go ahead, Pat. For time purposes, she does have a PowerPoint. I'll get up and go get it started. But Pat's your Whole Child Project Director, part of Manatee County Government in the Community Services Department under the Children's Services area. And one of the reasons why these presentations are key today is that these are from real people. These are your residents that are in these categories. You see the data and the statistics that you're seeing. So what we're trying to do is collect not only the participants that are coming to work sessions, but also the other factors. And when you start to look at your community development block grant, your new 5-year plan, these are other things, I think, as you, Commissioner Smith and Baugh and Benak mentioned, that become more of a whole picture of the community. So with that, we're going to get Pat started.
Welcome, Pat.
Hi, I'm Pat Johnson. I've been coordinator of the Whole Child Manatee for 15 years now. It was initially a 2-year planning grant awarded through the Lawton Childs Foundation and also Department of Health and Human Services to Manatee County Children's Services. We spent 2 years and over 4,000 hours looking at the community, root causes of how our young families could do better and make progress in their lives. I really thank you for allowing me to discuss this importance of caring today, because we're looking at our youngest children and our families that have children 0 to 5, 0 to 6, even 0 to 8, and we've expanded well beyond that over the years. But if we can serve those children early and provide the prevention resources that they need, we'll have a lot less issues to develop that will develop later on in our lives. You've all heard the saying that it takes a whole village to raise a child, and our community came together with that vision in mind and a very strong focus on prevention and how our community would collaborate, work together to integrate all of our service delivery systems. Here you see all of the dimensions that we covered. All the dimensions that we covered when we started looking at the root causes. And our profile does cover questions in all of those areas, connecting families to resources. I talked about the grant, and we looked at, as I said, planning with all of these organizations were involved. We had an action group in each of those areas that worked together over that period of time to decide what our priorities were in the community was working with our young families. We focused very much on the maternal child health issues. At that time, there were 15 issues measured throughout the state for each county, and unfortunately Manatee County scored lower than the state on 13 of those issues. And 10 years, 15 years later, we really have not improved as much, as we should have on those prevention issues for our young families. And that's throughout the state. It's not just Manatee County. We got that community-wide effort off to get our children to the best start in life by ensuring they needed everything to thrive. Our families with young children often need help. Some lack education, information, or economic stability, or they may not know where to go for help. That's one of the biggest issues. We have a lot of resources, but they don't know how to get there if they're not in childcare. Working families often struggle due to a lack of time, information, or adequate child care, as you've heard today. That's a big issue. Other families are strained by the demands of caring for our young children or dealing with children with special physical or emotional needs. We developed a mission, and our mission was to improve the lives of all families by providing the connection to a complete online network of community resources. And our vision was, of course, imagine, a community where everyone works together to make sure children thrive. And we've modified that a little to say that, more reality is that every family will have access to a network of community resources that will provide the foundation for stronger families in Manatee County. We work very hard now. We have whole child advisors out in the community. We work with providers, and we like to provide information and support for families with children. We want to change those community norms that encourage health and wellness. We ensure the services requested are delivered with follow-up, and we want to be the central clearinghouse of community data to consistently identify families' needs in Manatee County. This is actual data that comes from families completing the profile. And it's important, once a family, I'll show you a sample of what the profile looks like. I've pretty much focused today on the health issues since these work groups are focused on health issues, but as I said, we have questions in all of the dimensions. This is a sample of just the 18 questions out of 47 questions that are connected to health issues. And once a family completes the profile, they're shown suggestions on the services they may need. They can then choose, or they're assisted by whole child advisors in prioritizing their needs, and they connect them to a detailed description, which is right online. It can give them a paper copy of those organizations that provide them. And it's important to note that families accessing Whole Child Manatee do not generally access services through traditional channels. Whole Child is proactive, and we're often seen on the farms, in low-income neighborhoods, community events, and other places where families and children congregate. And although we serve all families, many of the families we serve are poor, undereducated, or on the wrong side of the digital divide. They may have language barriers, and we have very limited exposure to the community outside their home. We frequently find families with children who are growing up with multiple, unrecognized developmental concerns that have never had access to services, who are unable to due to illiteracy, non-English speaking, or transportation issues. many of the same issues that were found in the food desert focus groups. The assistance Whole Child provides may include a referral to numerous agencies with follow-up, which may take a long time sometimes, to determine if needs were met, but more often we include advocacy, family education, helping them complete often very complicated and involved applications for support, coordinating interagency meetings, attending meetings or appointments, and other scheduled support as needed. Of the 6 dimensions that we were focused on related to family and child well-being for the past 5 years, you can see that physical and mental health concerns are the largest, comprising over 36%. Over the 31,000 responses to those 18 health questions, over 11,000 families had concerns. And as far as the physical and mental health related data from families, I did want to mention, since we are concerned with housing, that 53% did have housing needs over that 5-year period. 51% do not have a dentist for their children, and that is still a major issue. I talk about turning points, but they do not handle children under the age of 6. That's a big issue. Rural Health is really the only place that does provide those services. They do cover children that are in child care, into Healthy Start, but everybody else would have to realize that their child needs dental care before they start school to be able to be connected to those rural health, and they have a long waiting list as well. 51% have a need related to women's health needs. We really looked at a holistic approach when we were designing this profile, and one of the big issues in our community is prenatal care, teen parenting, making sure that we find out so many times that they're in their 7th, 8th month and they haven't had any prenatal care. And that goes on to repeated births too for moms. Sometimes they have that care with the first child, but then they think, I don't need to deal with it with my 2nd or 3rd child. So we do have a high percentage of that. We have 46% that don't have a doctor for themselves and their family. We have 43% that do not have health insurance or Medicaid for their family. We have 30% that do not have health insurance or doctors for their children under the age of 6. And as far as the job placement you were discussing before, that was also another top issue, that 53% are looking for job placement, training, GEDs, ESOLs, or higher education. So we connect them to all of those resources that are on there. And this information can be pulled up for any time frame. We could show you trends over the past 10 years. We can show you trends over the past week. And we're able to do that with the management piece of this system, all of the families' replies. Often Whole Child is the family's last resort as they struggle to get their children and their families stabilized. They may not have understood why they're on the waiting list for certain resources, why they got a letter from their health care program, as we see the changing of systems in our health care, and then they're dropped, and we have to try and get them back into the focus of where they need to go, or what they did or did not do in order to gain services. So Whole Child staff, we really try to listen, and many times people say, thank you so much for listening. They get a lot of rejection from places that they go. We try to validate their concerns and translate the many and often complex processes, that go along with trying to seek assistance. They work within the community, weaving the family's plan with the assistance of our many providers. And by working with providers in our community, which we have a number of, we have monthly meetings with over 30 providers and organizations in the community at different places in the community, so they all get to work, see what everybody else does. And we bring in different presenters at certain times, maybe talking about the changes in healthcare, kid care, those types of things that all of our organizations need to be updated on. We also provided Surviving the Squeeze workshops for many years in the different dimensions. We brought in Social Security, all of the different aspects of trying to find healthcare that organizations might be aware of to help their families with. By working with providers, as I said, we work to ensure that the information about our resources is correct. They update their information regularly. We work with them on being able to search for the resources that are out there, and the monthly collaborative meetings, as I said. Over the years, we've identified many issues our families with young children face, and we've been able to pool and connect those community resources to address those needs. We know when the family is stable, the children benefit and they thrive. Filling gaps has been our focus when they're in the area of physical, mental, and dental health, school readiness, family and parent support, and self-sufficiency. There are so many case studies. We were asked to talk about a case study, and we worked with so many families for so long. It was hard to pick out one individually because we continue to work with many, many families. As we said, immigration issues are a big issue for a lot of our families right now, and we have ongoing help in assisting them in all of that and trying to get those families educated about what the community resources are because they are so hesitant to come forward. We had a single mom where the father was out of the picture with two daughters, 4 and 13, and she had her own business, but the family was giving housing cautions and a risk of eviction. The 13-year-old was staying home from school, not getting along with the teacher and other girls, and she was going to be reported for truancy. One of our advisors was working with this family because of her business, and she shared all this information with her. We later found out the mom did have a heroin addiction, and she was at risk of losing that business. The 4-year-old wasn't attending preschool due to long waiting list at the Early Learning Coalition. And so we knew of this family, and we used their services, as I said. So we were able to get the mom to visit Just for Girls, and she agreed to send her daughter. We got her transportation, so the 14-year-old was getting back into school. The mom disappeared, unfortunately, and Grandma was originally the owner of the business and came back into the picture, thank goodness, and she ran the business and we connected her to Grandparents as Parents, which is kinship care at Manatee Children's Services. She was able to get a month's rent from Manatee Community Action Agency because of the children, because of the girls, and able to pay her rent once the business was back up and running. Both daughters were eligible for Medicaid and were assisted, grandmother in lengthy applications that were required for that, searching and obtaining many pieces of documentation needed. And this overall took about a period of 6 months of someone working with the family. So just the intensity, sometimes we can refer someone, oh, thank you very much, I'm going to go get my GED here. Other times it's really an extensive process of working with the families, and we try to do the best to get them the services that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bussell?
You know, once again, isn't it ironic that we're sitting here talking about a food desert in a county that has such a big part of its economic stability agriculture? You know, every year we hear about, we either go out to and see the excess that people grow beyond what they can sell. And isn't there some way that we can connect the two? Connect the farmers, the Jones farmers and the tomato farmers and every other kind of farmer, you know,
Hardly all of them.
the various vegetable farmers, and connect those food desert areas that we've identified and somehow transport that excess product to the area where it's needed. It seems to me that that's something that we ought to pursue.
Yeah. Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, and that sounds familiar. I think there was discussion about that. I've been doing a little bit of research on Alan Jones because he just won an award, and I'm going to be taping a part of the award ceremony. I'm going to be part of it. So I think he has been working on something like that. Also, I just wondered, you said about 30% of families don't have any kind of health care for children under 6. I thought in the state of Florida there was health care healthcare program for young children.
That's Kid Care, and it is for 0 to 17.
Yeah.
Over the years, they've had their issues, but we have worked very closely with USF, with the Lawton Child's Center for Maternal and Child Health, because they are running assisting families with Kid Care. But what has happened over this past year, unfortunately, is that it was always income-based, okay, and you paid per child. Now that rate has really, really gone up. It's almost $400 a month for one child for a full pay person. What they have done, though, is expand the Medicaid piece so that more children are available to be thrown over into Medicare. But that there's a big process as well. It took about 6 months to get all those children. Some were lost between the cracks. It really is. We're almost referring people to the ACA for their children now because it will be less expensive than it would be to go with Kid Care. So Kid Care is going in a lot of directions, but over the years, I said it's had its ups and downs, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not like universal pre-K where every child is required to be covered with no cost. There's a cost. So.
Well, I think you certainly have demonstrated the need to have almost like a clearinghouse or some place where people can go and understand these resources, because there's so many resources, but like you said, that it tends to change on an annual basis depending on legislature, so you need somebody who is able to get them the correct information.
Yeah.
Do you find the number one deterrent for people to even come to get resources? What would be the biggest deterrent from people even seeking out resources for this kind of help?
Well, it's not hard to reach the families that are in childcare. We have over 42% of our families that aren't. So that's why we say we have to get out there. We go to community events where we know families are coming. They're offering SNAP options now at the downtown market. So we really push that. We really are out there trying to educate the whole community on all these different programs that are out there. And I think we've done a pretty good job. It's really getting those resources out to families, and they're so grateful. We have so many providers that call us that don't know the resources that are out there. Oh, thank you so much. I have a huge email list where I send out blasts all the time about different things that are happening in the community at the county. We forward neighborhood services newsletter, what's going on with the library and all of that. So I think people have been really grateful. One gentleman even said, "Oh, God bless you. I didn't even know where to go and get this," or whatever. So we really get a lot of positive feedback from the community and from families as well that we've helped them, and that's really, we do have a lot of resources out there that we may be lacking in housing and high-paying, better-paying jobs, but we have a lot of resources helping the communities that need them. So it's just a matter of getting them connected. But then sometimes, like with the child care, there's a 300-person waiting list on there, and it's two years. It's like ridiculous for a family that wants to go back to work. What can we do with it, to help those families? And sometimes we just say, well, try going to the center and see if you can negotiate a smaller, a fee or a scholarship fund, But we really, sometimes we have to say, we've done everything we can, but they'll come back a couple of years later with another need or whatever, and we work with families for an ongoing long period of time. So.
Can you put me on the
And that's what I knew I'd seen something. I just want to real quick. It says, Alan and the Suncoast Food Alliance, which he's a member of, made significant progress in their efforts to bring local farm products to our local schools, jails, nursing home, hospitals, restaurants, and tables at home. So the Suncoast Food Alliance apparently is working with the farmers to try to. I knew that I had seen something in my research. So.
Yeah, there was a fabulous article the other day in the paper about them going around with their bus, and I was going to mention to Aaron about that. As I said, we work with a lot of those groups, and once they get that mobile van up and running, I see they are partnering with Geraldson, so I imagine they will have fresh fruits and vegetables there. But we really have to get, like you said, out east where the farms are and get those, even the mini farm markets right within the community. Get somebody to come there and set up a stand, that they've had. Is a possibility. They have them throughout New York City, where there's places where there's no market, so that they have a little food stand, fresh fruits and vegetables. Okay. So I'm always trying to. We work a lot with policy as well, and working with University of Florida with their Center for Prevention and Early Intervention Policy, and just trying to get things changed over the years. That the Children's Campaign, working for things like that so. I'm always trying to keep on top of what we need to do for our young children, because it's been a long, hard battle, and getting those state organizations to work together to focus on young children has also been difficult. So,
good, thanks.
I think are you finished?
Yes.
I'm next on the board. I'm curious. You know, we talk a lot about here locally in the county, Manatee County, but is anyone talking to our legislators, both state and federal? Because, you know, what was the first term you used about it takes a what?
Village.
What's a village? You know, it's going to take more than just this dais or all of us. It's going to take much, much more than that to handle some of the problems that we have. And you know, you need to make sure that you get our legislators, both federally and statewide, involved, because there's a cost in everything. Nothing truly is free, and to be honest, I'm not sure that anything should be free, because we tend, as humans, to appreciate things more when we have something invested in it. So I was going to say before it came up about Alan, and I did know that, so I'm thankful that you found that email, because I knew there was something.
Mm-hmm.
We do have so many nonprofits that, you know, are out there, and it's a matter of all the nonprofits, again, same as with healthcare, coming together so that everyone knows what nonprofits are out there. Meals on Wheels is fabulous. They do so much. And last, and I know we've mentioned this before, and we're talking about our children, education.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a higher paying job unless you have the skills for that job. And we're trying to provide higher paying jobs up here with the economic development incentives that we have, but we need to make sure that we're getting our citizens involved in taking classes to be able to qualify for those higher paying jobs. So I think, you know, you had the pie up there, and there's so many other areas that I think need to be involved in this pie to handle so many of the problems that we have. So, Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, thank God for Whole Child, and thank God for the Child's family for supporting it every year. As you all know, they have something at Christmas time, and they still continue it on, even though Ed does, even though his parents were the ones that started it. But as far as the farmers, we had, with Brenda Rogers, we had met with the agriculture community because, you know, working with the food banks, we had all said, you know, that's what they really needed, because what the food banks do is all the fruits and vegetables go there, and then they do a flash to all the agencies in Manatee County. And I remember one time Tommy O'Brien, I asked if he had, and he goes, well, yeah, we do have some excess that we can't sell. The food bank went out there and got 60,000 pounds of cabbage, and it was dispersed throughout the whole county in 4 hours. So there are mechanisms that we are using now, and but, you know, today is a major education to all of us what's really happening in the real world. So I appreciate that you all are bringing this forward today. I think this has been very enlightening, and I'm glad it's televised, because I think, you know, the public doesn't realize a lot of the stuff that we are doing in the projects we do have. So I thank you for bringing it downstairs today.
I just want to respond to Commissioner Bowen's comment. We do work with CareerSource. Any family that is getting any kind of supplemental care has to attend a 6 to 8 week computer classes over at their bank, and we go over there and we connect them to resources if they have families, but it's not a handout, it's a hand up. If they are receiving those services and they want to continue that, it's called, you know, back to the workforce. They have to be training and looking at some type of job. There's a lot of programs out there that are doing that type of education. It doesn't necessarily mean going to college. It might be training in different activities that would get them a good paying job. So just so we remember that, those programs are available in our community.
I don't have anyone else on the board, so I thank you very much. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else before we go to public comment?
No, please go to public comment.
Okay.
I know your time's
Anyone from the public that would like to come forward, please state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And it has to be in reference to what we have discussed today.
Hello, Commissioners.
Hello.
My name is Barbara Elliott. I've really enjoyed your presentation today. I'm quite familiar with a lot of the conversation that's going on about community development, block grants, and things of that nature. I came here today kind of on the tail end of it to point out to you that I really appreciate the developers and builders, such as the young man that was here earlier, who try to do good in our community. That's wonderful. And I love that they're doing that in Manatee County. Unfortunately, I don't see the same thing in the city of Bradenton. And part of that has to do with developers who want to do a development, and the comp plans, yours, the states, the cities, they all say they have to build their own park to accommodate the people they're bringing in, or they have to pay impact fees so that population can be accommodated. Now we have a problem because Chip Shore, he was all for the history of Manatee County. You know about our museum and everything in East Bradenton. That is a historical district. It is a destination point. However, the city of Bradenton has seen fit to give it to developers, the same developers that took all of the Rossley Waterfront Park, except for a little strip along the edge, because they had a business partner who was a senator who got the state to go off the contract and give it to the city, who sold it to the developers. That land was never replaced with equal or greater acreage or amenities, like comp plan says. That happened at Bradenton Village. Now, all along our riverfront, the same group of developers have taken our waterfront. Now they want Glacier Gates. Glacier Gates is the seat of Manatee County. It is the history that Chip Shore loved. And there is a reason that that museum is over there on East Manatee, because everything started there in Manatee County. It is a destination point. You're talking about having a better economy for people to get better jobs. What better way to do that than to pump up that neighborhood and save its history and have it become an even bigger, better destination point. I'm with Stone Soup Communities Unity. I'm a founder and vice president. We're currently engaged in a legal battle with the city of Bradenton to save this park. Our case was just tossed out of court. We went there on May 2nd, and I believe May 3rd or 4th it was tossed out of court that we have no right as citizens to challenge. I'm asking you to look into this, please, because this is your history, and it's going to private developers. A public park is going to private development.
Ma'am, I appreciate you coming forward.
I sent you letters. I'm sure you'll all get them and read them and know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public want to come forward?
Good morning. My name is Lori Gale. I'm a citizen of Manatee County. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for taking the time and the effort for putting this together. Sherry did an excellent job. The department's reports have been very informative. As Ms. Baugh explained, education is the key. We need to raise up, by raising each one, education standards higher, to know things, to pass it along. This would be an excellent program to put out there. Unfortunately, most people don't watch the government channel. We need to find some way to get this information out to more people, because there are more people that would step forward and I think would give a helping hand. As I mentioned with Commissioner DeSabatino earlier this morning, there was an article in the paper, the Seattle paper, which I happened to get, that discussed Amazon purchased a large piece of property in Seattle, had an old hotel on it. They weren't ready to deal with the piece of property yet. They turned around with that hotel, and similar to Harvey and Travis, they've turned it over to homeless, and they're working the homeless people through there, raising them up with education, getting them into shelter, finding out what their needs are, getting them in contact with proper agencies like our 211 number. Very few people know about our 211 number, which can help put more people in touch with services that can help them. I also discussed with Mr. Barnott, Youngstown, Ohio has an excellent program going on right now where they've formed a department that is picking up pieces of property that are abandoned, in foreclosure. They're getting banks to release these properties to the county, to the townships, and they're rehabilitating them and getting the homeless off the street, getting the lower income folks into these houses through property. It's education. It's connecting the dots, making sure that that piece of information is passed along down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Jubilina, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Glenn Jubilina, community activist. I want to thank you, first of all, for not going to lunch and letting us speak here. Normally at 12, you pull the trigger, so thank you. Affordable housing. You know, I listen to that presentation and I go into shock sometimes. The big developers, you know, you got to pay to play. They have not stepped up to the plate, and they're not going to step up to the plate. You know, I look at Sherry, what she has to work with. Great job she's trying to do. But when I hear numbers, 20 houses, and we're giving permits for 30,000, I think those big guys need to step up to the plate and pay a surcharge, maybe 10%. If we had a 10% surcharge on the last 30,000 houses, we would have 3,000 houses for our millennium and our seniors. As far as property that the property management has, I think I said this before and I'll say it again, it needs to be privatized. I think a company like Harvey Bancroft and his son Travis could make a complete turnaround of the properties that this county owns that goes unused far too long. You look at some of our vacant buildable lots, 10 years. That's unconscionable that we sit on this property for 10 years that has the infrastructure in place to sewer and to water. You've got properties out in Rabonia. We just tore down a house down there. It's a buildable lot. There should be a sign on that saying, this lot is available for affordable tax credits. Let's get these small developers in here. You know, I'm a guy that says one house at a time. You wait for Baruch or Neil, it ain't going to happen. You need to go to these small builders that wait here today and make an incentive for them. So I'll let that for that. I'm going to go on to, food forests. I sent you a PDF on this as well. Detroit, 10,000 community gardens. There's about one every 9 square blocks. This isn't rocket scientist. You know, I've mentioned this before. Fruit trees, I'm a big proponent. I've got 50 fruit trees on my property, so it can be done. If I brought this up, 3 years ago, Canaan Elementary, 19 acres. If we would have planted bananas or papaya trees, lemons and oranges 3 years ago, we would be bearing the fruits of our labor. Those 19 acres still sit vacant. There's the Alice report. Do you really think someone that has $45,000, you call affordable housing $141,000? Half of that might be affordable. That's why there's no housing for the mentally unstable. I can go on for a long time. My time's up. I appreciate, again, you allowing to do this prior to lunch, and our citizens deserve better, and we can do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn. Anyone else from the public?
There you go.
Anyone else from the public want to come forward? All right. Commissioner Benak. I'll close public comment, by the way. Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, just real quick. I know an issue that I brought up to the county administrator, and I know somebody was looking at it at one time, but I just want to throw it out there again. You know, we talk about housing first and homeless and the possibility of the jail. So I'm just going to throw it out there again that the jail is sitting empty of all that spaces. I don't know what it would take to rehab the jail. I think somebody was looking at that.
I mean the one across the street?
Yeah,
Not the
yeah.
one up by the...
No, the ones that we have empty, whatever, the old jail. And I know it's a big issue as far as rehab, but somebody was looking at it, and I just wonder if that, might be a place to do housing first. So just throwing that out there.
All right. Anyone else? Then we are going to go ahead and adjourn this workshop. Thank you.